You're gonna go rolling.
Right.
All right, guys. Welcome to the best part, certainly of my week, and I think it's probably a highlight in your week as well. But this is episode 24
100%.
of Homie and the Dude, and we are here with Douglas Karson, who is a producer. Nice, Douglas. Nice little Queen's wave. An artist and a writer, and we're going to get into different aspects of all of that, and maybe some other stuff as well. Before we jump into that, Douglas, just a word from our sponsor. Our sponsor is Veast.kitchen. That's it. There's no .com. There's no .co.uk. They have the baddest, assest vegan pickup, carry-out food in all of Bristol. So check them out. It's Thursday nights and Saturday nights for you to pick up. You can order up to the day before. They're on Wriggle, and they have delivery as well that just kicked in about a week ago. So check them out. They are awesome. Yeah. Lastly, just a shout out to our La Familia. That's our supporters. Guys, hit us with the Holy Trinity, whatever, which is share at least one of our posts anywhere you want, like any of your preferred platforms. Second is like and follow us on Facebook. And third, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. All that stuff is contributing to us. We have these really nice lights that we just got a couple weeks ago, just as a little reward to ourselves. So that is a connection to hitting a mark that you guys got us to through your support. So thank you.
Yeah, amazing. So,
great.
Guys, this week, Doug, how you doing, man?
Hey, Bodie, how's it going?
I'm good. I'm good. I want to ask you a question, dude. I've noticed that you're like very multi, I guess, faceted with like your art, and like you do loads of different mediums. There's loads of different stuff. But one thing that I noticed consistently in a lot of your videos and stuff is that you actually have 2 fingernails painted. And I wanted to ask you about the 2 fingernails being painted to start off, dude. Tell me a bit about that.
So I will tell you, so my favorite comment about that was I was in rural England, way southwest, way out in Devon. And I went to a Morrison's and I was checking out, and the lady there said, "I like your nails, very patriotic." Because she didn't know I was American at the time, and I just kind of looked at her and I was like, yeah, sure, just go with it. I mean, it was started off as a complete accident, which was I was painting and I got a lot of blue and a lot of red on my fingers. Like I just straight out dipped them. And then I kind of pulled it out and I was kind of like, you know what? I kind of like how that looks. I just like color. Those are 2 of my favorite colors. They're both strong. They're primaries in a way. And I don't know. I think if you're in the visual arts, you have to be part of that in your own appearance as much as the things you create. You as you appear to people, the thing that people remember about you. What is that little mark that people note you for? You got to give people something to cling on to. And the fact that you brought it up first is partly what I guess that's partly why I do it.
Yeah,
I think it was
100%.
Yeah, Grayson Perry said, I don't wear dresses because I like wearing dresses. I like wearing dresses because I like being the center of attention.
I like it. Yeah, no, we were actually talking about it recently on a podcast with a professional skater. He was talking about one of his friends who is like known in the community as a guy who wears like 70s attire, and he wears like women's blouses and has like a mustache that's like completely curled and like waxed and really like
majestic.
Majestic is exactly what it is. It's fucking majestic. And yeah, he's iconic and he's known as that guy. If you saw him on the street, you'd know it's Richie because of what he's wearing. And like you said, it's almost like a calling card. And William, the guy we were talking to, was saying that he's almost jealous of that, and that in his latest project, he's now trying to find his calling card so people recognize him. And yeah, it's weird amongst creatives that we all like in some way want to have this like thing that people are like, oh yeah, like you've got Usain Bolt with like this one, you got Michael Jordan with the like flying through the air. So,
and like the high wrist guard that's high up on his forearm. I mean, there's certain things. There's another aspect to it as well that I think is interesting. Like, and I remember this all the way going back to when I was a kid. There's certain things you like to wear when there's something important coming up. So back in sports, if you were competing in something, like for me, it was like down to like my favorite underwear or like my favorite socks, right? But it's almost like this human need. And if you could think back like to the, let's say the Native American Indians that have totems, these little pouches of stuff that they take to war with them, right? And it's really important and like connects you with like, I don't know, like a connection to power or to being ready, you know, to perform or to do something.
I mean,
So
there's I mean, there's an element of the more powerful that if you're doing something with other humans. I mean, if you're doing something in a universal level, then we're pretty powerless. We're all just kind of ants on a highway, whatever. But if you're doing something within human society, which most of us do most of the time, then we have a lot of power. We have a lot of things we can manifest, and anything that gives us a little bit more feeling of being powerful, that actually directly reflects to actually having and accumulating more people who are willing to deal with you on those terms, because you feel that way, you carry yourself that way, and then all of a sudden people respond to that. So it's all about that human interaction and finding things that reinforce your own way of projecting yourself to the world. And you know, if it's a favorite pair of underwear, I totally feel that, by the way. I still have those underwear from when I was a kid, and when I do marathons and things like that, I still wear them, and I have my favorite trousers, and they're the ones. But it's also things that you know are tried and true. You know, it's like battle tested. They've been through the trenches with you. You know, I know if I wear those and run 30 miles, I'm not going to get chafed in places I don't want. I know that because I've had it happen multiple times. So, you know, you trust these things over time, and yeah, you do develop relationships with particularly intimate undergarments. What kind of sports were you into? I'm just wondering. You mentioned,
dude, I mean, like this goes back not even a couple years ago when we did jujitsu. There was some like Nike, like almost like tight bike shorts that I would wear that were just a little bit more supportive. That I would have to have those on. Yeah. And you know, like in jujitsu, you have a certain kind of uniform anyway. But underneath that uniform, there were certain elements that you wanted to have on. There was like, we were wearing like ankle supports as well at the time. But like going back then, baseball, basketball were the two really ones. And yeah.
I was basketball, football.
Okay.
Oh, nice.
I still play a lot of I actually just put a chain net. Speaking of St. George's, by the way, I just put a chain net up on the St. George basketball court.
Nice.
This weekend.
Yeah. Community work.
Well, I actually have put up. It's my third net putting up. I put up 2 rope ones and they get ripped down. And I just decided, you know what, I'm going to put a chain one up because people keep ripping the rope ones down because, you know, they climb on them and try to get to the hoop.
Yeah.
And I was like, you know what, I'm done with this getting ripped down. I mean, they're not that cheap. They're not that expensive, but it's more a pain. You have to bring a ladder out and stuff. But
yeah.
You know,
what do you think? Why are they ripping them down?
I think
they're just climbing on them.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Okay.
And those rim designs aren't designed for rope nets. They're designed for chain nets. So the way you have to fix a rope in, it's not good for the rope. It's not like as secure as it should be. So it ends up getting ripped at those points. And then anyway, they're not ripping them down on purpose.
No, yeah, 100%. That's just interesting. I also did basketball as well, and actually during my basketball years, I had a bit of a fucking
uniform.
Yeah, I totally had a style. So I would wear like oversized. Well, my whole uniform was like super oversized. So I had like really baggy top, and then I had like really baggy shorts. But then I wore knee pads that like were this like hexagonal like black knee pads, and then I would wear underneath. So tucking into the bottom of my knee pads, I had long white socks that I would wear. And then on top of my white socks, I'd wear a yellow sock on my right leg and a purple sock on my left leg. And then I had my like boots, but I had like a pretty much from my legs to like my
Speaking of socks, I'm glad you guys got the memo about Black Sock Day. I'm glad we passed that memo around to be.
But you know what it reminds me of, like, and like I have no basis for like knowing this whether this is true or not. But I guess I'm drawing on my movie watching experience. But like. And the movie that's coming to mind is Troy. So right before they go to battle, you see them kind of like just checking certain things, like making sure the strap is right, making sure it's exactly on the right. There has to be some sort of like connection to, I don't know what it is. Like, what do you guys think needing that or finding strength or comfort in that is? Is it comfort?
It's control.
Yeah,
control
maybe,
the things you can. You know, you can't control if you get hit by an errant arrow, but you can control whether you put your armor on the best of your ability. Like,
that's a very good point.
You know,
Mm.
it's when you're going into a situation which is pretty far out of your comfort zone or control zone, you've got to maximize the things that you can control, because there are actually not many, which makes them really important. Because there aren't that many things we can control as humans. You know, it's like we're pretty, you know, we're pretty powerless in the face of overwhelming universal currents of entropy. But the things we can control, we have to like really embrace them and give them love and nurturing and attention, because you know, it's like, you know, I always reference this with I'm not gonna bring it up too much, but this is the only time I'll say it. But in Game of Thrones, there's very, very little magic, very little, actually, when you think about how little magic takes place. But that magic is so tipping. It's such a crucial part of the show, because the little bit that there is actually is huge. It totally separates people, because there are people who have that little bit of an edge and people who don't. And that little bit of magic goes really, really far, because when there's no one else who has any of it, if you have some, it is a massive edge.
Yeah. Do you know what?
Like,
I'll don't say we won't go into this. We'll go into this. Don't put away too fast. Let me just let me indulge that for one second.
Let me just wind that back a little bit.
It's the same in a lot of the Tolkien writings and within the movies as well. Like
a little bit.
Yeah, just a few people, and that's what makes it this air of specialness, and it's what gives that air. And also, it's interesting, you can instantly recognize those people. Again, talking about like calling cards, you know an elf because he's light. He can walk on the top of snow, not deep in it. You know, you know a wizard because they're typically a lot bloody taller. You know, it's very interesting that if you look at things like fantasy and science fiction and things like that, there's these core archetypes within that
well, the
also
best
then
ones,
go back
the
to
best
it.
ones, only the best ones.
Yeah, that's true. That is true.
In many ways, the kind of like more kind of generic ones tend to have, well, everybody can do it, and it's not such a big deal. That tends to not be as powerful in its messaging. That it's this special kind of thing that is either earned or is so unusual that somebody has it without having to go through a certain amount of trials for it.
Yeah.
So, you know, I love Tolkien, man. Go ahead.
Can I just remind us that this all started with a blue and a red thumbnail?
Hey, man, I talking points are not to be underestimated.
Do you know what? Tolkien is far, and you know, I'll put this out there for everyone. He was such a big part of my childhood as someone who grew up in the 90s when the Lord of the Rings trilogy was coming out, the first trilogy, and then the opportunity for you to read the books to me when I was younger, actually, and then reread them as an adult and dive into his other pieces of work, which are all incredible. You're like, this guy was such a big part of a whole genre. Like, it's so rare. People always go, oh, Lord of the Rings, incredible, one of the best trilogies, but no one gives him credit for what he really did for every plot that has come out since then about fantasy.
Well, I mean, you could say the same thing about Dante.
Oh, that's a good point. That's a really strong point.
You know, like when people set such a believable fantasy world that it becomes reality. I mean, arguably Star Wars as well. I mean, those things are religions now. They're not just these. They've gone past being literature and into the realm of religion, which actually in many ways is what all religion is founded off, not to be sacrilegious or anything like that. But you know, all religion is basically based off books, and those books are based off stories, and those stories were the best stories for the age. They were the coolest stories that people could think of, you know. And it's like that's, you know, so
it's a really interesting point that you referenced Dante as well, because his like shit, man, there's so few people that I talk to know about this. He like Dante and his Divine Comedy is one of the most interesting and crazy books that exists. And if you haven't read it, it's one that is hard to understand. If you find an English translation is one, and then it's hard to understand because it's very complex writing. It's very well written. But
I would say find one with some of the illustrations for especially for Inferno are so breathtaking.
Yeah.
there's one in particular. I think I can't remember who the it's a really famous artist did all the black and white illustrations, and it is unbelievable. It really puts imagery to the words in a way that makes it much more profound. But I've always found what's interesting about the Divine Comedy is how utterly boring heaven is.
Yeah.
Heaven is just like a bunch of do-gooders singing all the time. And like for me, I'm like, that sounds like hell. You know? You know, don't get me wrong. I'm a pretty, you know, I like to think I'm a pretty kind, generous, reverent person even, but you know, that portrayal of heaven, that it's just all of these people, white is so boring after a while, you know.
Yeah.
It's blinding, it's overpowering, it's ubiquitous. You need shadows to give things pop, you know. So yeah,
Do you know
anyway, that's
that's a really good segue actually into a piece of poetry that you posted on your Instagram recently. I can't remember which one of the two of the ones it was. I want to say that it was Prime. I want to say that it was possibly Prime, and where you talked about how, you know, that you were light, and that you, in darkness, you know, you realize that light is what blinds you. It's not the dark. And like, it's got like pretty much into that, dude, of just like it really paints this interesting picture of that there's a need for balance. And I think Dante, and even though it's written in a very interesting way, you know, your perception of that is one that I also came away from as well, and was like, wow, you know. And even the art, again, don't get me wrong, the art was beautiful all the way through, but was even more spectacular, like you said, in Inferno is where it is really crazy, is where you see the like nut stuff. And I think, yeah, it's interesting. You do need this like balance, and I think coming away from Dante's is that's a really good way to almost come away from it, of that. Yeah, you need the balance.
I'm glad you like that poem. That I think you're talking. It's actually Baths in the Dark, but it's part of that set I did with. Prime. Yeah. But it's Baths in the Dark. I mean, that poem is very, very close to my heart. I mean, I still take baths in the dark. You know, I do believe that if you really get into pitch black, which is actually quite a challenge, by the way. If you've ever tried to go into real darkness, light is very good at getting around corners, getting under doors, getting past windows. You know, and the amount of, and especially since the electric age, the amount of kind of little, you know, a clock here or something, finding actual pitch black is a pursuit in itself, by the way. But if you sit in pitch black for long enough, especially I found, I don't know if it's just my mind or what, but I do feel like there is some bioluminescence to us. And that wouldn't surprise me at all, because there is phosphorus in our skin, and that is a bioluminescent material. And, you know, if you look at nature, you know, they've discovered this going ocean diving in the deep. If you go deep diving and you have lights on, it's like, oh, there's nothing here. All of a sudden you turn the lights off and like there's just glowing shit all around you. Just you're surrounded in bioluminescence. And you read old books like Moby Dick, where they talk about the ocean lighting up at night. And you read about how it used to be before we kind of developed modern fisheries and things like that. I mean, it's a shocking amount of natural light occurs without having to use electrical light anyway. But yeah, no, but Baths in the Dark is I'm glad you that connected with you. That and I do recommend it to anyone out there. If you've never taken a bath in the dark, go run a hot bath, turn out the lights, sit in there for a while, and just be okay with it. Be okay with the unknown.
Dude, what about, would you add 5 dried grams of mushrooms to that cocktail? I don't know.
if you can find a good supplier.
I was gonna say it's almost like floating. Like, have you ever done any float tank stuff?
Sensory deprivation. It's similar, definitely.
Yeah.
It puts you in that same. There's a movie about that, which is a terrible movie, but I remember it. It's all about a sensory deprivation on acid trip. And this actually, it was a real scientific experiment, but basically the guy discovers the bridge between realities, but then he accidentally brings some of the other reality back to our reality. He brings a monster with him. So it's like, yeah, it's pretty terrible.
Nice.
But it's kind of this idea that you're exploring other dimensions and realities. I mean, you guys do a bunch of jujitsu, but have you done a bunch of like, I mean, if you go really deep into meditation techniques and some of the really powerful kriyas and things like that, that takes you right to that border of reality as well.
Yeah, so I'm a pretty heavy meditation practitioner. Probably have, I don't know how many thousands of hours and days and months of retreat time. But you're right, like, and there's different types of meditation. So some meditation is based on what they would call insight, which is to be more aware of stuff, right? There's other meditation that's based on concentration, and that's where it can, like, if you can really hone in and get very sharp, that can kind of take you through the portals of really weird places in your mind, and can be as you know, whatever you want, really, as psychedelic as any of the strongest psychedelics if you do it strong enough.
Well, I've always distinguished that as the difference between the state of meditation and the state of mindfulness, which can lead to the state of meditation, but doesn't always.
Yes, that's right. And mindfulness is just, it's a type of meditation. And there's other types of meditation which have to do with chanting, which have to do with mantras and breathing, and you know, there's 100 of them, maybe 1,000 of them, of different types of things. So yeah, that's really interesting. I think the other thing that, from what you were saying, that sparked just a thought in me, is this notion of light and darkness and token and Game of Thrones, and you know, kind of harkens back to this hero's journey arc, right? That is almost like a formula, and you think, okay, well, that's a pretty clever formula that was created at some point. But no, dude, that's not just a formula. Like, that shit actually is like, there's some realness to that. Like, the light and darkness thing is not just some sort of like writing technique to capture people's attention. There's a real sense of, even right now, man, like, I don't know how you want to look at like the world and politics, and half of the world is literally like completely separated from the other half on how they view reality. And
all I'll say to that is, if you take Tolkien as an example, the orcs probably think that the heroes are some mean motherfuckers.
Yeah,
exactly.
The orcs are like, these guys are just slaughtering us. Yeah. They just created a volcano in our hometown. They set off a nuclear bomb in Mordor, you know, like.
Yeah, 100%.
You know, we talked about this with Cobra Kai.
Oh yeah, exactly. Like, there's you know, the whole Cobra Kai thing where there's the whole joke that Ralph Macchio's character in Karate Kid is actually the bad guy, and that Billy Zabka is actually the good guy, who's like got this new guy coming in, taking his girlfriend, kicking his ass at a karate tournament, you know. And it's like, it's funny that it's really interesting that everyone has like two perspectives and two sides on everything, and it's why I think communication is such a big key to like human existence, and how we as like it's weird as well, because our communication, I would say, everyone thinks it's verbal, but so much of it as well at this point is also physical, like minor, like noticing each other's micro movements and things like that. But yeah, like, humans feel like we're sucking at communicating. I'm not sure if we've ever been good at it, but
I think it's people have forgotten to focus on the things that they do agree upon, because it's a legitimate discussion. If two people are on a different side of something, right? One person looks at it, sees a 6, one person looks at it, sees a 9. They're both right. Now, I've had this discussion whether the intentionality of the person who wrote the number actually comes into play. I don't think it does, personally.
Ooh.
I think see, because if that intentionality has been lost over X amount of time, or through X filters of misuse, let's call it, or even just use, it's just been lost over use. You know, sometimes it was a 6, sometimes it was a 9. Some people got told it was a 6, some people they're not wrong. But for me, it's about focusing on what they do agree upon. Hey, it's a number. That's it. Don't worry so much about which number it is. Who cares? You know, it's a number. Can we agree on that? Right. Let's find the things we can agree on and focus on those, and stop worrying so much about the little shit we disagree about. Who cares that it's a 6 or a 9? That's such a minor difference.
Yeah.
In the scheme of things, who gives a shit whether it's that or that? You know, it's like, what do we agree upon? Okay, let's focus on those things and kind of let the rest go, and be compassionate to the fact that other people have different points of view.
So to take your analogy and bring it into like a truth of right now and today, if we look at COVID, we can all agree, right, that we all want to live, and we all want our loved ones to live, right? Like, can we all agree on that?
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
Okay, that's a starting point.
Yeah.
Now, let's go through what process will give us the best opportunity of living. And let's just kind of sift through that and see where that is. But you're right, like, you got to start with something that we have as common ground. Otherwise, if we start at like 0.7 of a like 10-point process, and we miss point 1, which is, hey, we have some just basic fundamental connection with each other. You know, we want good things for the people we love. Can we agree with that? Great. Okay, now what do we do about that? That's a great place to start on any of these kinds of really, really like political or positional conversations. So it's a really nice point.
Yeah, I'll just segue in. That's like that. A lot of my art is kind of really focused on that common ground aspect of it. I mean, it's one of the reasons I go towards rainbows and that color scheme so much. Is I just think that's something. If you look through cultural norms and color theory, rainbows have no negative connotation in any culture at all. There's no. Maybe I think there's one or two very small tribal cultures that have been known to have some negative connotations, but most people, vast majority of humans, see rainbows as a sign of hope or some kind of crossing over. So it's one of the reasons that plays such a prominent role, is that pursuit of common ground, that pursuit of something that we can all agree upon. Is like, this is a beautiful color scheme. Can we all agree upon that? Okay, let's move on from there. So yeah. But it's hard, man. It's hard when you feel really passionately that a 6 is the most important thing in the world. It's like, but I really need that 6, you know. And it's like, yeah, do I really need that?
Dude, that's not a 6. That's a 9.
Well, I mean, it gets into more complicated stuff when it's life or death, obviously, you know. But yeah,
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Two things I want to say quickly before we like dive into anything. I actually want to ask you about your art in a minute, but one, I want to say I'm very proud of you for your meditation. You're like a weird little like guru. I always forget how much you've done, and like you've done a lot. Like you're pretty badass, even though I take the piss out of you all the time for it. You're actually pretty badass. You're actually pretty good about it.
Have you taken up any of those habits? Do you mind if I ask?
Me?
Yeah.
It's a great question. So I could be very honest. I could be exceedingly honest. Basically, what I'll say is I'll speak in vague terms. So for me, I used to do a lot of meditation when I was younger because I saw the massive benefits that it was providing Tom with his personality and life and stuff about 6-7 years ago. Then I kind of shied away from it due to, I guess, what you could call just life and substances, I guess. And so later down the line,
being a teenager.
Yeah, exactly, being a teenager and whatnot. And I guess later down the line, the only time that I really touch back to it is during, I guess, heavy periods where I am away from the habits that I have in England and things like that. So I've been traveling around the world a few times, and every time that I go traveling, I find myself meditating at some point, irregardless of when it is, whether it's the first day, the last day, or right in the middle. I will find myself for some reason meditating at some point, just because when I'm in a clearer headspace, it definitely does give me time to pick things apart. And like you said, you know, that like grind work of like editing my own self and working through some little bits and bobs that just sitting and thinking doesn't always help with. So yeah, I would say that my practice is non-existent pretty much day to day, but there's periods where I get moments of inspiration. And actually, as it's happened, every time I've gone traveling and come back, I've come back a very different person. In a lot of cases, a lot more mature, because I've spent time by myself with one or two people at extended periods of time, and we've lived very poor and worked shit out. And, you know, it's just that coming of age stuff that you do when you're like 18, 19, and it teaches you about life and changes you a bit as a person in terms of responsibility and things that you have to do. So I think, yeah, I think when I do use it, it's a very powerful thing, but I also find that I also am a little bit scared of it, honestly. Yeah. And I won't be afraid to say that I'm definitely afraid of diving into those deeper levels of brain. And like, I'm one of those people that, you know, you talk about having a bath in the dark. I'm one of those people that I don't like the last couple of minutes before I go to bed. I don't like those. They stress me out. But yeah, when I do get into those places, it sorts some shit out, but I'm scared of it. You know, it's like, it's that whole thing, leap of faith into the unknown and like looking at yourself and reflecting.
You know,
it scares me.
You know what you just reminded me of? When you just had your surgery and you look fighting against the anesthesia, you're just like, I don't want it. I'm not going on.
Yeah, literally.
But that's that like right before it's almost like losing control, isn't it?
It's the thing. What I mean before bed is like when So for me, when my girlfriend falls asleep, and I usually stay up a little bit later, and we'll lay in bed just like with my own thoughts. And I guess I've suffered with depression as a young man for a lot of my life because of things that I've like buried deep and have like dealt with inside. So I guess as a young man, depression was very hard. So I was always really scared to go in my head because it was always a really dark place. In later years, it's become a much brighter place because of the shit that I do day to day and my girlfriend and the impact she's had and whatnot. I know all the kind of stuff that I do in life now and creativity and all that kind of crap. But it's still one of those places where I go, there's darkness in there and I know that it's in there. So I'm afraid to always dive deep into it, I guess, would be the truth.
That's nice.
Yeah,
That's a nice share.
Thank you.
How about you, Doug?
Depression is a interesting one.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think anybody who doesn't go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say
I meditate every day, every morning.
Yeah.
First thing I do when I wake up. I do child's pose. I try to do it for as long as I can, but I got two really young kids, so they don't give me that much space. They have learned to kind of leave me alone a little bit when I'm doing it, just because it's like, you know, daddy needs to have a sit. But I developed a routine where I do child's pose when I first wake up. Then I do headstand, and then I sit in meditation for however long I can before the kids start needing me. And you know, I actually got into it, you know, many years ago. I had a really influential teacher as a yoga teacher named Yogi Ashutkananda, who taught me a lot about how the techniques, the actual physical techniques, about how to use those focus principles and how to actually utilize mindfulness and cleansings and access some of those deeper places and have it be in a very safe, secure way. I look forward to having a bit more time back to kind of go back into it, because I spent a few years now kind of, I'm in the early childhood. I mean, one of the reasons I ask is because I think it's interesting, because my son is 3, and when he was really young, he would sit with me on my lap and let me sit and hold him. And now he's 3 and he's like, no, let me go. You know, not at all. We used to just sit there and ohm together, and now he's like, he won't have any of that. So I was just, and also for me, my mom was a yoga teacher, so I grew up with yoga as this kind of presence in my life. I didn't do it at all until I got injured when I was 19, and I got injured so badly I couldn't do any other sports. So I started doing yoga and art. That was how that was a huge life shift for me, that time period. I met my wife in that time period too. So she ended up, you know, it's like I was so vulnerable. You know, when you've got this whole plan and you're this person, you think you're this person, then all of a sudden something happens and you're this really vulnerable, exposed kind of meat sack. And you know, it's like it opens you up to new possibilities of what other lives might look like, or what other things could come up, and you just kind of, once you're open that way, it's really difficult to then go back to being closed and kind of, you know, you know, I'd be a very different person had that not happened. I'd be, you know, I kind of can see who I'd be. I'm very much a plan oriented person. You know, I right now I'm like still in my 10-year plan with my wife. You know, we talked about 10 years ago, we're pretty much dead on where we wanted to be. We're kind of those people that be like, right, what do we want to do in the next 10, 15 years? And then we go about kind of making those things happen. So I knew where I was going had that not happened. That was such a big shift for me, though. But yeah, I mean, you know, one of my expressions is you don't get to pick and choose your history. You know, if you're in a place where you're enjoying your life now, then that whatever took to get you there is just your history. That's just what happened. There's no way to predict how these things are going to happen and how they're going to play out. So, you know, I wouldn't change my life right now for the world. I absolutely love my family. I love my work. I love my social structure. This is the most friends I've ever had in my life by far. You know, the most people in Bristol, especially in Bristol. You know, since I moved to Bristol, I've got friends. It's really the first time in my life I've got like a big network of friends. And it's a very strange thing to be, you know, at 30, you know, late 30s, and then being like, oh, I finally have friends. It's like, it took a long time, you know, to figure out how that works, and to be in the right place to where I could allow, not just allow myself to be vulnerable to friendship, but also, you know, I think my wife was the first one to get through that wall of mine, which was really solid, and she just waited me out, man.
That's dope.
Yeah, she She just was like, all right, I see that wall, I see those spikes, and I'm gonna keep coming. I'm like, but there's a wall. And she's like, yeah, don't care.
That's amazing. She sounds like
Yeah.
an awesome woman.
Yeah.
She's I can't, I'm really madly in love with her. We actually got our 10-year wedding anniversary coming up. Which I'm
Oh
quite,
shit.
That's a big
oh
one.
yeah, it's a big one. I'm a little bit bummed because we were going to do a massive party. You know,
But
but yeah, we know because we met on Halloween, so we always did a big anniversary party. She was
okay.
dressed as she was dressed as a cheerleader. I was Fidel Castro.
Makes sense. Perfect.
That
match.
is the exact combination that was meant to happen.
There's a great
Fucking
photo
hell.
Of all the things I was picturing, I did not think you would say Fidel Castro for some reason.
It was 10 years ago, Tom. It was 10 years ago.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Oh, dude, that's brilliant. I think, and it's something that's so weird saying. I like Tom always says this to me. He said, you know, as a young man, he thought that I had a lot of passion and I had a lot of drive, and he could see it in my sports and he could see it in like creative things I enjoyed, but I never like committed to anything. And you said you realized when I was maybe like 17, 18, you were like, oh, he was like, you're not chasing like the normal stuff. He was like, you're chasing the girl, you're chasing the one, you're chasing the thing that's gonna like be the person. And like, it's like, just as someone who I would say I'm in a place that you are, Doug, of just being like, my life was changed when I met the person that I'm currently with for the better, like in 1,000 ways that it could ever be. And, you know, you guys fully agree. And so, like, it's just the love that you can get from a significant other changes people. And I would say it's something that, like, if you're not looking for it, not that I'm saying go out and start looking for it, but man, the change that having someone who believes in you, who supports you, and who wants to fucking be around you is like spectacular, man. It means worlds of difference than a lot of other things in life, I would say.
I think also, like, that's a really good point. I mean, you're a young parent with a young child. There's something in there that's really important, which is your kids may have the same interests in you and same passions as you, but they may not. And it's really, it's fundamentally important to be curious, because I would say that everyone has a passion, right? It's just some passions you just don't understand from your perspective, right? And some might be passions about things that maybe you don't approve of, but everyone's passionate about something.
Yeah.
And it's, you know, and if something's a little bit unorthodox to you, it's your job as a parent to really start understanding that a little bit more. And I think with you, it really was like a penny dropping. I was like, holy shit, he is super competitive about finding the girl and going through relationship after relationship until he finds the girl. That's like, for me, it was always about succeeding at, whether it was at sports or at, you know, some sort of career, that, like, I was like this for that. And I didn't ever see Bodhi that way. And then I was like, holy shit, he is like this, but it's a whole other thing.
You make me sound like, it sounds so bad. So I'm just like plowing through lanes.
I'm sure you've got, there's some casualties along the way, I'm sure.
A better way I like to describe it is I was, up until this one, a serial monogamist. I'm someone
That's a nice one.
Yeah, who enjoyed, who I've always just gone, you have potential to be someone who I could see myself spending an exceedingly long period of time with. So I'll give you a gamble, and if it works out, then good times. If it doesn't, then I know where I stand and I'll move on to the next one. You know, so that was kind of my philosophy. And don't get me wrong, it's entirely the fault of the shit that I grew up with. Like, I'm watching stupid TV shows like How I Met Your Mother and shit, and it's like making me believe I need to be chasing like this, like, you know,
Hollywood love story type stuff.
Exactly. But it's, I don't know. I would say though, it's really nice when you do feel, I think it's weird. I would say it felt like true happiness for me when I first started dating this person. I've gone throughout my whole life going like, oh yeah, I'm really happy. And then suddenly, like, I started dating this girl and I was like, whoa, like, oh my God, I didn't know that someone could support me this much. Like, holy cow. Like, oh God, that feels nice.
It was honesty for me. It was
Honesty,
she was
yeah,
the first
dude.
person I really felt like I could say some of the brutal things I was thinking, and she would just be like, okay, or
Yeah.
she'd be like, yeah, that's not entirely crazy, you know. And you talked a bit about some of those dark places, some of those dark thoughts, some of those dark emotions, maybe. Uh, I was always able to communicate those to her very honestly, and that's the strength of will it takes to take that kind of communication and just be like, all right, but you're not, but it's also finding someone who works for you in those things. I'm a really big believer in actions over thoughts. Who cares if you think something if all of your actions are in line with good action. I'm not a thought police kind of person. I'm like, people can think whatever the hell they want as long as they don't go out there and do some of those things. But then I don't care if you're fantasizing about it. I'm not going to try to stop people's fantasies from being something, or not even fantasies. I wouldn't even call them that, because some of these things are just things that occur to you that could happen or you could do. It doesn't even mean you want to do them. It doesn't even mean, but you're like, and then some people would be like, oh, but you shouldn't think that because it's really evil. And it's like, yeah, but as long as I don't do it, like, I don't know. I mean, that's always been where I'm at with things. As long as you don't do the things, and it's the way I've always said. There's a big difference between dropping something and almost dropping something. There's nothing wrong with almost dropping something.
Yeah.
Nothing breaks if you almost drop something. If you
know
catch
what?
it, it's fine. It's like,
I was gonna say, if we're gonna police people's thoughts, Stephen King needs to be in jail now, like fucking
exactly,
now, like
people.
Jesus.
Yeah. It's like, people have thoughts, man. It's happened. It's
Yeah.
like, no point in beating people up for it, and no point about. And that was actually one of the things I really learned through some of that yoga training, was how to be compassionate towards myself for those thoughts. And then that compassion for myself with those thoughts has meant that I've been imminently and utterly more compassionate with other people. And that compassion really starts with the self. You forgive yourself in a really deep and truthful way, and then that means you can do that with other people, and be more understanding. But even if you're understanding and compassionate and empathetic, doesn't give people excuse for being dicks.
True.
It's like you still need to be like, well, especially if you're doing business with people or financial transactions, you can be like, look, I get it, your life's falling apart, everything sucks, but how you're behaving is still unacceptable.
Yeah.
Even if all the shit that's going wrong, there's still a line that each of us has to determine with people, where it's like how relationships or dynamics are unfolding. There has to be a point when you're like, nope, don't care. And not don't care. I still care, but even though I care, I need to distance myself from that right now, because I have something else I need to accomplish.
Yeah. Do you know, I spoke to I was in LA a few years ago, and I went and spent some time with a professional. I won't say his name just in case he doesn't want me to disclose this like behind the scenes info, but I went and hung out with a pro skater, and he was telling me a bit about, because he owns one of the most prolific skate companies like in the world, and he was telling me about how he kind of got there and the process of which he went through and whatnot. And a big part that he said was that for years it wasn't successful because he was working with his homies. And he said, look, let me explain. He's like, it's not that I don't want to work with my homies. My homies are the people that I want to work with. They're the people I definitely want to work with. He's like, but not all of my guys have the work flow, the work drive, the hustle, the ambition that I have to make this successful. So he realized that after, I think it was a really, I want to say something like 12 years of trying to do this with his guys, that he had to cut some of them loose so that he could then make the company successful. And he was like, then I'm happy to like sponsor you and you be back as part of the team and like we do whatever. But in terms of the behind the scenes, in terms of the work, in terms of the grind, you're not the one. Like, as much as I love you and you're my homie, you're not the one.
Yeah. That's a tough conversation to have, isn't it? Like,
it's so hard.
Because like, part of doing something is the fun element, right? You want to, and the fun element is most fun when you're doing it with your homies, doing it with people that you've have experienced fun with in other capacities of life. You can just walk down the street and have a great time with your homies. But now we're going to do a project together. And that, you know, in itself has a perception of this will be amazing all the way through. But as you know, and as we talked about earlier, like the hustle needed to do something that you want to bring to life, that you want to connect up as a career, is way more than fun. Fun is definitely an important part of it, but there's so much shit around it just so that you can have that pure fun, that if that stuff isn't getting taken care of, it's not going to happen, especially in this day and age. It's just not going to happen. So you got to you got to be pretty, you know, you got to make hard decisions, but I don't think it's like washing all the fun away. Like there's ways to keep it in there in different ways, but still progress through to meeting your objectives.
And also making the grind fun. Like you can make the grind fun in different ways. Like I know, you know, something that we do is, you know, reach out to our followers and like give them a little shout. And when I'm doing that and reaching out to people, I'll whack some music, like an album that I like. I swear I needed to listen to that whole album, and I've got 2 hours free while I'm doing this. So I'll just jam that on and we'll see what happens. And it's like,
what are your favorite albums to listen to? You seem like a Pink Floyd kind of guy.
Wow, that's a massive compliment. I really appreciate that. I really appreciate that.
I can see you jamming out to some metal, some Dark Side. Just throw on Dark Side, do some work. It's great.
Yeah. Actually, dude, like
while you're saying that, I'll just make it up.
Go for it. So for me, my music taste is very large. I typically like me and Tom were just talking actually before the podcast. I currently have a playlist on Spotify that I've been working on for maybe like 2-3 years now, and it's got maybe like 700 songs. It's like 56 hours or something, and so it's pretty varied. Recently though, my most recent, when I was last doing our little like reach out, I listened to I can't remember the album name. It's a John Frusciante album, the lead guitarist of the Red Hot Chili Peppers, pre Josh Klinghoffer and after their first guitarist died, during the like, by the way, Californication and Mother's Milk and a few other albums that they did with him. And yeah, it's beautiful. For me, I love guitar music. I'm a big fan of like shredding guitar. If you can put some emotion behind some really beautiful like guitar solos, again. But if you ask my girlfriend, she'll be like, God, he just listens to like 50s to like 80s music. Anything outside of that, he's not really listening to it.
Yeah. I mean, there's merit there. I mean, there's you know, there's something to musical education, and education in general, which has changed in the last 50 years pretty profoundly. So, you know, I'm a big fan of it's not music necessarily, but it's partly music and it's partly the jazz era. But if you look at the post World War One art scene, top to bottom, so literature, poetry, specifically poetry. I think my favorite poetry period is between war poetry. The literature there is spectacular because you basically have people who grew up on classical education. So this was like the Greeks, you know, the Iliad, the Odyssey, you know, Patroclus, Dante, and they read them in the language that they were written. They had to learn, you know, Greek and Latin, and then all of a sudden you have this ridiculous war, the Great War, which is, you know, just so fucking stupid because it was just basically a bunch of people wanted to test their weapons, and then they just are like, well, the old systems are all dead, so they just started writing new shit, and it was the first kind of new stuff in like 400 years. You know, you get Dadaism, you get all this crazy fucking stuff, and you know, it's such a spectacular time. Now you had a similar thing from kind of World War II up until arguably the 80s, 90s, as education with Thatcherism and Reaganism in the U.S. started to become defunded, and what we thought of as classical education started being superseded by technological education and STEM education. You know, those things are great. I love STEM, but so those other things were taken out. They weren't replaced. They were just kind of given, and then you kind of have this vacuum of knowledge that we're seeing now 30 years later, 40 years later, the repercussions of that defunding, of that dismantling of educational systems. Because education has a 40-year lag before you start to really see what happened from it, you know, and a lot of what's going on now, especially in the US, because I think you said you grew up in Wyoming, right?
Yeah.
So I grew up in Arkansas. I grew up in the deep South. I saw those school systems, how they taught people, and the way that affected the people who were going through them And people are like, well, what do you think about Trump? And I'm like, well, of course, this is 30 years later, 40 years later from that. Now all the people who grew up in that system with those ideology, with no real education in a formal way that we would think of, by most people think of as education, has been accomplished. Well, of course they believe anything because they never got taught anything different.
Yeah.
So, I'm a big believer, not to get into politics too much, I'm sure we'll talk about it a bit, but like, there's three things that I kind of I'm a core believer in. One is education for everybody, kind of top to bottom. Just some, you have to have education. Another is, people need to get paid for the work that they do in a relatively decent way. You can't have indentured servitude and slavery, which are there in the world today. And the third is you got to have people who are being rewarded for being good at what they do. Like, you need to have hope that if you work hard and do good, then you actually will kind of move on somehow. You will somehow elevate yourself through being capable. If you don't have that, then you see the issues with that now, because I think that's been lost completely in society. People don't believe anymore in the American dream. They don't think that if you work hard and are capable, you will move up to the next tier. They just say, well, there's no point in working hard and being capable because I'm just going to get fired from this job by a manager who doesn't give a shit. And you know what? They're probably not wrong. And it's like, you can't have this hopelessness around being a capable person. I mean, it's one of the reasons I went towards the arts and being self-employed, is at least I'm not worried about somebody else firing me. If it falls flat, if whatever I'm working on, I've got this new project I'm working on. It's called Keep Art It, which I love that name, by the way. Keep Art It. And it's like, it's this huge overreaching kind of broad idea. The core of it is bringing art to retailers to increase footfall during COVID, especially in malls. And if that falls flat, it's me. It means that I wasn't delivering what I said I would deliver. But this is something I know I can deliver, so I'm really excited about it. But if it was me doing that for somebody else, it's like, well, did that fall flat because of me, or did it fall flat because of my relationship to that person, or did it, there's so many other, the more moving parts you put into something, the slower it goes. And in some ways that's great, because sometimes you need that period to slow things down and reflect. But sometimes you want to just do things and hope that they're successful. I mean, I guess that's partly the American in me, is like, I don't want to deal with a bunch of red tape. I just want to do stuff and, worry about whether it's good or not after.
Yeah. Do you know, to dissect just a few, like a bunch of things that you just said there. First of all,
sorry, that was sorry.
Totally good, dude. Totally good. So, I agree. Do you know, actually, I've really been enjoying musically. You talked about like diving into like after the Great War. I've been loving like 20s and 30s, especially for cinema and music, is an era that I've been trying to dive into a bit more. Especially black music during the 20s and 30s is something that I am like, I absolutely like loving right now. Anyway, that is like something that, again, time-wise, like I remember I literally was talking to my grandma the other day, and my grandfather was 24 years older than my grandmother. And I asked, first time I was like, holy shit, he was born like way before you, which is great, like kind of thing. And I realized that he was there when the first movies were shown in cinema. The first black and white movies were shown in cinema. And I'm sad because he's long past at this point, and I'm not able to have as mature conversations as I would have liked to have had with him, because I was too young when he did pass. But shit like that is crazy. Like, this man literally lived, and he lived 2 iPhones, like pretty much up to iPhones, and like passed away. But he saw everything from the first movie in cinema all the way through to having it like on your like right here. Like, that's crazy to me. So,
but your kids are gonna have that if we're lucky as a species. Your kids are gonna be like, oh, you couldn't just mentally teleport to places. Like, we had to fly. They're like airplanes. It's like, you're gonna. Who knows what like in 100 years, which, because it's, with the way technology is and medical technology, you're probably going to live another 100 years. In 100 years, fuck knows what the technology is going to look
like. Literally teleport. Like, what is next? If
it's microchips, Elon Musk microchips.
Yeah, because if you ask,
hey man, I'd be a cyborg. Fuck it. As long as I don't have to be a Cyberman, as long as it doesn't go towards like, Cyberman type cyborg, I'm
Yeah.
totally fine being a cyborg. I have no problem with that.
Dude, I am so in it. This is the one thing that I'm really confused about. Everyone's like, oh my God, like Bill Gates' vaccine, he's gonna put a microchip in it and you're gonna like be a robot and command. I'm like, dude, let's talk about this, like for reals. Like these microchips are already being used to cure things like epilepsy and things like that, and strokes, and even quadriplegics are like, they're finding that later down the line, they hopefully will be able to reconnect nerve damage to like everywhere. But further than that, as someone who is very much a sci-fi fan, augmenting humans is something that we've been doing since the beginning of time. And I talked about this recently in terms of mentioning about transgender people, but I would say in the realms of just, if you want to talk about us physically changing ourselves.
Dude, you're wearing an augment right now.
Exactly.
Those glasses.
I've got glasses, I've got piercings, I've got tattoos. I've augmented myself already. To say that we as humans aren't already going down that path is absolutely crazy. We are already there. People have fake knees. You get a knee replacement and you have a metal knee.
Have you read there's two books that I think cover that the best that are sci-fi. One is clearly, I mean, one is top 5 sci-fi of all time, which is Hyperion. If you haven't read Hyperion.
What's it called?
Hyperion?
Okay.
I've not read that.
Oh my God, Hyperion, I'm trying to remember who wrote it right now, I'm blanking. It's a quadrilogy, so he wrote 4 books. He wrote Hyperion, Hyperion 2, and then Endymion and Endymion 2.
Okay.
Now, Hyperion 1 is by far the best, although the other 3 round out the series very, very, very well. But Hyperion 1 is the book that inspired me to write poetry when I was in because one of the main characters is John Keats as an android brought back to life in the distant future.
Wow.
And I was like, who is this Keats guy? Why is this author so obsessed with him? And I looked up John Keats. I literally bought an anthology of Keats poems and read it cover to cover. And that was my introduction to poetry. That was the first poetry I'd ever read when I was maybe, I think, 15, 16. And it was from sci-fi. But the other one is, and I can't remember the author as well, sorry, but is the trilogy Red Mars, Green Mars, Blue Mars.
I've heard of them. I've not read them.
Yeah, Red Mars is absolutely, I mean, again, it's like, trilogies tend to trail off after the first one. The first one is, similar to Dante, it's like the first one's like, whoa, this is unbelievable. But both of those really heavily deal with what happens when humans start augmenting themselves and how that would look in the future. And they do it really beautifully. And in Red Mars, it's more kind of a recreational thing. Someone's like, what, I want butterfly wings. And they're just like, right, well, let's genetically code you to have butterfly wings and you can fly around. And awesome, fucking awesome. I'm like, yeah, that sounds great. Whereas in Hyperion, it's much more like, well, we're in deep space exploration. We really need to like have better oxygen capacity. We need to be able to, it's much more like functional augmentation to live in really harsh environments. But either one, it's like, yeah, that sounds great to me. I'm like, yeah, like I'd love gills. Be able to go dive in the ocean and never have to come up for air. It'd be fucking awesome. Think about how amazing that would be if we could give all humans gills and we could all live underwater, like in a practical sense. Like, dude, Anyway, but yeah, read. If you haven't read Hyperion and you would like science fiction novels at all, Hyperion's top 5, hands down. Yeah, nice. Hyperion, it's spectacular. It's time travel. It's all over the shop. It's got a wonderful semi-villain called the Shrike, which is terrifying, and it's just fucking awesome.
Nice. Okay.
Sorry.
No.
I'm a huge sci-fi buff. Like, dude. I read, and I'm an avid reader. So.
Are you looking forward to the new Dune movie?
I'm not.
Did you watch the last Dune movie?
I watched. Yeah, I did. I've watched every Dune movie that's ever come out, and the only one that's decent is really the first one. Which was so far over budget that what's his name didn't make another movie for like 5 years.
Yeah.
So past the budget that people were like, nope. Like, and it kind of bombed in the box office as well. As great as it was a bit, it kind of fell flat. I always think that's one of the weirdest things about movies in particular. You've got hundreds of people, thousands sometimes, spending donkey money And you've got all these people who that's all they do with their life is decide on movies. That's all they do. And sometimes they are just fucking terrible. And it's just like,
Dude,
how is that possible? You got thousands of people and billions of dollars, and it's terrible. It's just terrible. Like, how can it be so bad? How? How is it possible?
You have no idea how much, like, if we calculated the minutes and hours of this discussion, of having this discussion.
DC movies are a great example. All the DC movies.
Yeah.
Why is it writing? Is it graphics? Is it like why are they so bad? You know, there's a lack of humor, clearly. That's partly the issue, but it's like it's more than that. It's something else. How can they be so bad? It drives me bonkers. But then it also gives me hope, because I'm like, well, if all those fucking people who do nothing else with their time and make millions doing it, but create ass movies, still somehow manage to be successful, I got a shot.
DC is absolutely terrible, and it's funny about talking about terrible movies. I must admit, though, I have a soft spot for some of those terrible movies, because there's a point where I'm like, it bridges from terrible into like almost like I'm watching this as like almost like removed from watching it. Do you know what I mean? You're almost like
absurdity of it.
Yeah, you're like, I'm gonna watch this.
It's parody. It becomes parody.
Exactly.
Well, we just had a text stream last night.
Literally last night about a Nicolas Cage movie coming out called Jiu-Jitsu. And
yes, I saw ads for that. It looks terrible, but kind of appealing at the same time.
Literally.
Bodhi sends it to me like at 9 o'clock at night. He's like, what could go wrong? Keanu Reeves is training Tony Jaa.
No, Nicolas Cage.
Oh, sorry, Nicolas Cage is training Tony Jaa to take on an alien but use jujitsu to take on an alien.
It's like Space Jam for adults.
Yeah. Just this is what I mean. Is also like, I also go, how are some of these like actors? Like you talk about the people who okay the movie, but then also like you look at people like Vin Diesel, who are on their like 18th Fast and Furious movie, or like Nicolas Cage, who you're just like, dude, your career is just bad. How do you consistently choose bad movies?
Hey, don't start. Nick Cage is got some great movies. I actually, I challenge you to try to dissect Nick Cage. He's a very interesting actor.
No, it's a mixed bag, bro. It's a very mixed bag.
It's super mixed.
Here's my line. He is such a powerful actor that the characters that he is playing become him. That is what I feel like Nick Cage does in like almost every role. I'm like,
it'd be interesting though, because he hasn't done a movie in quite some time, and this is actually kind of out of character for him to be a teacher. So
it's true. It is true.
We'll see.
We'll watch it, even if it's just for the entertainment value of picking it apart while we're watching it in real time and getting some laughs along the way. Because there are some 100%. Nicolas Cage movies that do that.
So Tom, do you remember Mystery Science Theater 3000? And
totally,
what that is?
There's another one. There's like a spin-off of that on Netflix. Yeah, on Netflix. There's something.
What's it called?
Mystery Science Theater.
No,
is it 3000 or 2000?
It was 3000 back in the
3000.
day.
No, it's basically like Gogglebox here, where people are like.
It's like four characters sitting watching a movie, making live action commentary, but like written, so it's scripted.
Yeah.
The plot is they're like on a spaceship in the year 3000, and they find all these movies and they just watch them and make fun of them.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
So they do, but it's this is all back in like the 80s. So it has like, but it's all like, isn't it like classical like like horror
really
movies,
terrible horror movies, like 50s,
exactly.
60s horror movies.
It's weird. I would say like, here's I'm gonna be very bold when I say this, because I'm insulting my own taste in movies massively. But Chinese, Hong Kong, old school martial arts movies fit, in my opinion, in both the terrible and most revolutionary like film category, because they do so much for stunts, but then at the same time, I'm like watching a dude balance on like a sword. Like, I'm like, it's just, there's an air of like, it's kind of terrible at the same time. But that's why I'm like, I love those Hong Kong movies for that
Yeah.
air of like unrealisticness, almost like borderline anime, real life kind of style, you know?
I mean, you don't want to throw out the baby with the bathwater. You know, even really bad things sometimes have moments of genius. You know,
Oh yeah.
and it's like sometimes you're looking at you watch something to find those moments of that perfect shot or that perfect sequence, or that perfect piece. You know, like, you know, every artist has one or two pieces that are, you know, even Picasso. I think someone was talking about Picasso. You know, he had the people talk about him like he was, you know, he's a great genius, maybe the great genius of a generation. You know, probably only 5 or 10% of his pieces are masterpieces. All the rest of them are just kind of Picassos. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
You know,
yeah,
the same
really
is true
good
with
point.
Basquiat. You know, Basquiat probably had 5% of his pieces. Andy Warhol probably just like, you know, 5-6% of his work. You know, the rest of it's just other stuff he did. But the actual pieces that come out that are like those really, you know, whoa, I can't believe it. Even Francis Bacon, you know, it's like he has 5 pieces that he's really known for. All the rest of them is just Francis Bacon. You know, it's like
Yeah.
So
the percentages are really low for
do you think that makes
really
Daniel
hitting the mark.
Day-Lewis? Do you think that makes Daniel Day-Lewis a legend or a like? Do you think he's like broken the system, or do you think because, like you said, you know, to hit that, like you do make some really great nuggets, but to be one of those guys that hits it 3 times, gets 3 Oscars, is like this consistent? Do you think that's he's a legendary actor? Do you think that is
I mean,
purely?
but he is a legendary actor, you know.
Yeah.
And also acting is a bit different because you're reading somebody else's script. So
That's true.
there is an element of reduced responsibility for the creative aspect, which means that actors can go all out with the delivery.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
if you have a good script and you're an actor, you can just go for it,
Yeah.
you know. And as long as the script is good and you hit that performance kind of in a way it's supposed to be hit, you'll get good reception for that. But the writing of the script, the creation of something new, that is much more low percentage game. You know, that's
Yeah.
a much, you know, even Stephen King really only has 3 or 4 great books. The rest of them are all good. They're
Yeah.
solid, but the actual, you know, like, you know, you talk about it, you're talking about maybe Thinner, you know, like there's not actually
Misery.
that many.
Yeah.
Misery. You know, the rest of them are all just, you know, they're scary, they're good. You know, R.L. Stein, I grew up with Goosebumps. You know,
Yeah.
Goosebumps, there's only maybe 5 or 6 really great Goosebumps. The rest of them are just good. You know, they're
Yeah.
good books.
Here's the thing though, dude. I think that's that, and we should probably get into your artistic process because I am interested in how you go about, you know, your poetry, because that's a really distinct little niche that I'm curious about, just how that art develops itself through whether it's wordplay or just deep contemplation on certain words, or, you know, there's a whole different way to many different ways to sort of create poetry.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, but with regard to Stephen King or any other artist that has, let's say, stinkers or a process that gets to greatness, that's part of the artistic like journey, right? You have to go through, and sometimes there's some, you know, there is your blue period to get to like greatness, right? Otherwise, you know, then you have broken through to another system of creating art, because art is about exploration and failing, but within failure, accessing new areas, and then taking that, reformulate it into like expertise that you have, and continuing the process on until you do bottle lightning. And that lightning that you've bottled is that one out of, you know, I don't know, 5, 10 pieces along the journey, and then you do it again, right? Unless you know, you do something like pop music, which is a very, very rigid formula, and you just recycle that same, you know, you're just kind of doing the same layup over and over and over again. So yeah, like it makes total sense that you know, underachieve, be frustrated, break it, rip it up, throw it away, process gets you to like this higher plane of you know, another level of art that you couldn't previously have gotten to without climbing through all the shit to get there.
Yeah, it's a process, man. I mean, yeah, poetry was probably the first. So music was first for me. That was the first kind of expression I had. I grew up learning music. You know, I'm a pretty proficient guitar player. I did bands for a long time, and then I got really fed up with I couldn't find the right people to work with, and then I just kind of was like, right, I do too many other things. Music is just for me. I'm gonna just share it with my family. You know, I take it to parties. You know, I'm not like looking to do it professionally. Poetry was an interesting one. I've written poetry like for before I read Keats, but the first time I was exposed to it as poetry was Keats. But yeah, I read a lot. I've had a bit of a fallow period during COVID because of family responsibilities and just the volume of what's going on. I haven't been able to produce how I normally would. I've had a few really good moments. I just wrote one the other day because one of my really good friends, Helen Shepherd, she wrote a beautiful poem about her 90-year-old aunt who doesn't use any social media or technology. And one of the lines of it was out of the blue. And I took that and I kind of was like, right, I love that phrase, out of the blue. And I kind of turned it into a poem, which I'm probably going to be posting in the next few days. But also right now, I'm also really focused on Ted the Tidy Tiger. So a lot of my writing energy and my kind of writing focus is going towards that. And I've kind of on the 4th edit now of one of the books. And I've kind of gone through and I've talked to a professional editor and she's given me a lot of great feedback. And so now it's taking it and doing the grind part. So the writing of it was written during, so, you know, art for me, I'll just go back a little bit. Art for me has always been an outlet for when things are happening or a reflection of things that are happening. So Ted the Tidy Tiger, which is the children's book I'm really focused a lot on right now, came during lockdown. So I've got a 7-month-old baby and a 3-year-old. And right after the 7 months, when my daughter was born in February, my wife was bedbound with lots of complications. So she was either in the house or in the hospital. And I had a newborn, a 2.5-year-old, and no support because lockdown happened. But the support actually came from my 2.5-year-old. So his name is Theodore, and he started tidying his room kind of somewhat spontaneously. And his, you know, before this, his favorite animal was tigers. He had a tiger suit. So I just remember one day he was sitting in his room and he was putting away his cards in his box without me asking him because he knew I was really stretched. You know, I'm like, you know, up in the night feeding the baby. I'm bringing my wife food in bed, doing the laundry, you know, just trying to keep the house running. And I just started writing, you know, Ted the Tidy Tiger was feeling very hungry. And I was like, just, you know, it just came out. And it's, you know, so that's been, that's a very, very organic process in writing. And I think staying true to your own life, staying true to your own experiences, and just looking around and being present, you know, if you have an inclination to write, that will bring about certain levels of poetry. And, you know, there's lots of poetry in the world. All you have to do is look at it. I think one of my favorite expressions for what it means to write a poem specifically is, you know, it feels like a ribbon of inspiration has been moving through the world and it's passed through me. And my duty as an artist is to catch that ribbon before it passes on to the next artist who's willing to accept it. Yeah. And I've always thought that was a beautiful way of thinking about inspiration. It's not for me, it's not from me. It's just kind of being aware enough to recognize that it's there, and then having the means, both physical, so you have to have something to write on, but or paint on, but also the means in terms of technical proficiency from having practice over years or a lifetime to take that inspiration and turn it into something that other people can connect to and understand, and translate that moment when you're looking at a flower and it's kind of this perfect flower that's blowing in the breeze, and translating that into something that people not only can understand but want to understand and want to engage with. So sharing those moments with people is a large part of poetry to me. And, you know, yeah, keep it personal, keep it real, and also just, you know, start writing. That's you know, the biggest thing. I think Quentin Tarantino said it, which is, you know, there's 1,000 ways not to write a script and there's only one way to do it. Just fucking do it. You know, it's like, you know, just write. Just, you know, if you want to write poetry, then just write it. And if it sucks, it sucks. If it's great, it's great. But write it, share it. Who gives a fuck? No one cares.
Yeah.
You know, get over yourself. No one fucking cares. You know, you know, I'm a bit, you know, I don't want to get into it too much, but sometimes I hear about people with social anxiety, and I'm like, dude, nobody cares what you look like. Nobody cares. You know, you think you're gonna go out and everyone's gonna be staring at you. Nobody's looking at you. Everyone's got their own lives, their own glasses, their own dramas going on. They don't care about you, except for the people close to you who will probably be sympathetic. You know, it's like, you know, the other people, the randoms, they don't care unless you're somebody who's gone out of your way to make them care by being a celebrity or something like that.
It's so true. Like I reference it back to Some of the work that I've done is in leadership development, and part of that is videotaping people, let's say doing a negotiation or something, and then we replay it, and we kind of, you know, sort of debrief it and see how people's behaviors were, how their body language was, what words they used or whatever. And you get someone saying, God, I just never thought I blinked so much. And then I'll stop and I'm like, all right, so John thinks he blinks a lot. Let's go around the room. Did anyone fucking notice that John blinks a lot? And everyone's like, what? What are you talking about? So here's the lesson, John. No one cares.
No one cares.
So, you know, let's just look at, you know, your behavior with regard to negotiation, and it's a really good point. Like,
and also, if they do care, especially in the era that we're in now, that care lasts for 30 seconds, and then they are on to the next fad, the next trend, the next thought, the next whatever.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, but at the same time, there's that balance of nobody cares, but you're still important. You know, and I think part of a lot of what we see in the world is people trying to establish their own importance. You know, whether that be, you know, flat earthers, whether that be some of the far extreme political people are trying to say, no, I am important. Look how important I am. You know, I am being disruptive, and that shows how powerful I am. So it's a very interesting thing to you know, there's a balance between nobody cares but you're still important, and you know, but that's the balance of everybody and every struggle, and that's the dark and the light. You know, I am. You know, and the way I've learned to kind of embrace that, and I think this is partly from meditation, is basically I'm as important as I think I am.
Yeah.
You know, that's, you know, it's like, as if I think what I'm doing is important and meaningful and has magnitude, then it does. As simple as that. You know, if I don't believe in it, then it doesn't. And that's, you know, it's pretty much top to bottom that way. You know, so yeah, it's a really interesting thing. But you know, I love writing poetry. It's such a pure, and Bristol's such a good place to do it. It's been such a bummer with lockdown. It's been such a loss for me, because I don't really like online poetry stuff. I'm not gonna pretend I do. I really struggle to connect to poetry on a screen. It doesn't have the same weight. I find myself drifting, especially if it's a darker emotional poem. You know, I'm just like, I don't want to watch this, and I'll just do something else. I can't connect to it the same way. I can't give it my attention the same way. In which case, then people just end up posting kind of vanilla poetry, which is, again, it's like, oh, I don't want to watch that either, because that's just like fluff. So, you know, that's been a huge loss with lockdown for me personally, is not being able to go to poetry events and not having that community of people to share my emotions with, and, you know, and also taking my kids there. You know, it's like, you know, I was talking to my wife about this. It's like, I'm always fine keeping the kids up if it's for an event, but I'm not going to keep them up for a digital event, because they wouldn't do it. They can't do it in the house, same reason. Whereas, you know, if my kids are out at an event, they'll be well behaved, because they know that there's a bunch of people there and they don't want to leave. And they know if they act out, we will just leave. So, whereas in the house, it's like, I can't convince them to watch a poetry event. So that's a huge burden of care. You know, it's like, it's so fucking tiring.
Yeah.
I miss it, man. I miss poetry nights. You know, Tonic, Milk, Raise the Bar, Spell. I mean, Bristol's fantastic. You know, normally in my normal life, I'm at 5-6 poetry nights a month.
Really?
You know, and it's like, those are some of my best friends. You know, and not just the friends, but the community, the sharing. It's a place for me to go express myself when I have something I want to say, or an emotion I need to process. And that's a huge loss. It's been a huge loss with COVID to not have those things. So yeah.
Do you know what
anyway?
I was talking to someone the other day actually about just about how they're doing with COVID, and they were saying that they very much enjoy going to the theater, and that the loss of the theater has been like, they follow actors around and will go see shows regardless of what the show is, because specific actors are in it, so on and so forth. And it's a shame to see what the British government is doing in terms of reflecting the arts, and with their whole, you know, retrain campaign kind of thing that they're pushing.
God, so offensive.
It's really sad. But what I would say though is, for me, I don't know. I found lockdown, and it's interesting. You know, I'm quite a internalized person, so I'm not too bad with being stuck inside. I did a lot of it during my teenage years, playing games and being a nerd and watching Tolkien and reading science fiction books and shit. You know, and you know, I spent a lot of my time doing that, so I'm okay with being inside. But I think what it has been a big hit on has been like, I think all of us as a community, like just watching people interact with each other now as a public is really interesting. I love like going out, and as much as this is like awful, especially with numbers climbing back up, but I go to like the park that's around the corner and I'll sit in a corner and just watch everyone and just be like it's so weird how we interact now and how we avoid each other. And I wonder what that's going to be like when we do translate that back into gigs, when we do translate that back into, you know, live events, you know, parades, rallies, what, like fucking anything where there's gatherings of people. It's going to be interesting going forward.
You know what's interesting is,
go ahead.
Like early on in COVID and lockdown, you were like remembering, you like connect with, I can't wait for this to be over so that I can get back to where I am, right? Get back to all the stuff. We're now so far into it.
Are we ever going to get back?
Yeah, dude, it's like, wow, like have we like inalterably been changed now where like even
our generation of people are just going to be fucked, and like the next generation is going to be like, oh, what's wrong with granddad? And then they're like, he lived through COVID. He's a bit like, he was inside for like a year and he's a bit twisted.
It's unknown. Like it's a big unknown right now, like how much lingering damage this period of time is going to do to people.
Not just mentally, but physically. How people who have had COVID are going to be 20 years down the line. When we do get a vaccine, how that vaccine is going to affect all of us 20 years down the line, what it's going to look like.
What I'll say about that is, first of all, we don't know, the amount of people who are affected by COVID is actually very, very, very small. Very small. It's actually, I mean, the people who are affected, it's a devastating way to be afflicted, unfortunately. And it, you know, but the percentages are just, you know, are incredibly low. But because it's a novel disease, it's affecting everybody quite differently and quite extremely. But yeah, I mean, there's definitely, I mean, it's one of the reasons I'm kind of sad to say that I'm not going to be continuing with Art Battle, is for me, I don't see habits changing back to being willing to go out to gigs anytime soon. And I actually don't see, you know, my uncle wants to do a whole family reunion to kind of be like, yay, COVID's over in July next year. And I basically was like, dude, there's no way it's over in July next year. Because so first of all, you're assuming there's going to be a vaccine by then, which I don't necessarily think we'll have accomplished by then. And even if there is a vaccine, you'll assume it's going to have been widely available, which I don't think that will happen. And even if it's widely available, you'll assume it's be able to be distributed evenly. And then even if it's distributed evenly, you're assuming that there's going to be enough political stability between the US and the UK that having a family reunion will be a completely easy thing. None of those things I think are givens right now. So I'd probably hold off on planning that. I have unfortunately a very bleak look on the future in terms of the next 10 years. I just can't see any way the next 10 years look good at all. Nah. I just can't. I mean, I think Bodhi, you're probably in your early 20s, something like that.
Yeah, 22.
So I think you're in the core age group that's going to get hit absolutely the hardest of this. Unfortunately, I'm sorry to say. And I know that's, you know, and as somebody who struggles with depression, I mean, in some ways I'm like, well, depression is the appropriate response to how shitty things are. You know, it's not like, you know, when I'm, you know, if I was in the 80s and like fucking money was flying everywhere, loads of cool shit was happening, you could sell art at the drop of a hat. Yeah, I wouldn't be depressed. You know, it's like I'm partly depressed because there's a bunch of bad shit coming and I can see it coming. And I'm kind of like, that's kind of depressing. I think people between the ages of 14 and kind of 22 are going to get hit absolutely the hardest of this, maybe 23, 24, because, you know, there's just nowhere to go in those early 20s years when that's such an essential part of developmental need, is like establishing work norms and being an apprentice and all these, you know, even internships, shit like that, on the site experience. You know, it's going to be so hard to do that. And then, you know, of course, there's going to be the economic. Anyway.
No.
Like I said.
Dude, you're totally right. And
you know,
Yeah, it's gonna
I
be
would
it's gonna
say,
be a rough 10 years, man.
yeah,
It's gonna be bumpy. And I keep saying this to people. They're like, how come you're in a good mood? I'm like, because these are the good times. You know,
yeah.
we still have food. Nobody's fighting yet. You know, it's like
No one is picking up arms. The Civil War
yeah,
hasn't started.
you know.
Like,
And also, but what's really weird about COVID, what's really weird is it's the first time in human history that every human on Earth is having a relatively similar experience. Now, that's actually something to be hopeful for. There's two things that I'm hopeful about. One, it's the first time we've had something as a species where we've actually worked together as a planet to kind of have a method of going after a problem. And that's actually kind of amazing when you think about it. You know, Spanish flu, we just were like, yeah, fucking let it fly. Whereas this one, it's like, wait, we can probably do something about this. And even countries like North Korea and Somalia, which is, you know, in the midst of the civil war, are still being like, actually, we shouldn't have public gatherings. You know what I mean? And it's kind of like, that's kind of amazing when you think about it. And the second one that I really hope is in terms of climate change, because up until this, we've had this, as a species, we have this faith that in times of distress, humans will be able to innovate their way out of a problem. And that's especially true of neoliberalism and capitalist economics, which is, you know, if there's a problem, the free market will solve it. We'll just innovate our way about it. You know, if there's anything's wrong, somebody will come up with a solution. And it's like COVID proves to you that science doesn't work that way. You have to do preventative science, and you have to have had huge amounts of preparation and research to deal with these acute problems when they arise. And so part of me is like, well, hopefully this proves to people that we need to invest in climate change stuff now, because once that shit starts falling apart, it's already too fucking late. You know what I mean?
yeah,
And so I hope that there's some reflection, some ability to see that you have to have preventative medicine for these big problems. Because if we'd had PPE stocks, we wouldn't have had to have a lockdown. You know, it's like, you know, it's like, so part of me is like, those are the two things I come away with that gives me some hope for the future, that those will be the long-term results of this, is that we have those lessons learned in some ways. But like I said, it's going to be a tough year, tough decade. I'm lucky my kids are young, you know, like they're going to basically just grow up with this being their childhood. So, and it's just going to be like, this is what it was, you know. It's like, you know, if you grew up in the war years, it's like, yeah, you don't have any consciousness that that's just how you grow up. That's just the life that you had, you know. And it's the same is true for everybody who had it at that period. So,
Do you know what? I would both agree with some parts and definitely counter you on one thing. I would say for me, I would say my age group is in this really weird place of, dude, fuck man, I picked a really bad time in the time scale to come into fruition, man, because especially with my plans, all of my like shit that I'm looking forward to is like when I'm in like 50s, 60s, like when I'm like old and I'm wise and I can be grumpy about shit and no one like bothers me. Like I'm looking forward to that kind of stuff. And that's looking less and less likely by the day at this point. So that's kind of bums me out regularly, of just being like, shit, man, I'm like, my generation and my kids are fucked in terms of like where the path we're going down is really scary, like you said. But the other thing that I would say is I'm also concerned about the younger generations, because a big part of like, at least I would say, because my grandma is German and she was very much like in the epicenter of World War II when she was young, and it was during her like between like 5 and like 9, and they say your script really gets written between like 3 and 7 is when your like main like core development in terms of who you become as a person, it really happens during then. And I think, to me, the thing that is interesting is I see my grandma now and I hear her talk about the war, and I see things that she does, mannerisms, opinions, and things like that, that are still rooted in fear, in like anger, in confusion, in misunderstanding, in panic, exactly, and all these kinds of areas that came from when she was very young during the war. So I'm also concerned about the generation below me, because I feel like they're at a point where this is what they'll know. The level of social media that we have because we are trapped indoors, the level of technology, like you said, something that you said earlier about people aren't going, I need the American dream where I work hard and I achieve. It's now like kids are going, I expect to receive and then somehow achieve. And you're like, that doesn't make a lot of sense in a lot of cases. Like, you expect things rather than working hard for them. It feels like in a lot of cases, at least from
that's not a new thing.
Yeah,
Historically, that's really not new. It's there's always been a lot of people who just expect.
Yeah.
Always, always.
Proportionally, yeah.
But it's just,
Yeah, I guess
You're from Arkansas.
I can't, you don't get to pick and choose your history.
Love you, Arkansas.
I wish I could say, love you, Razorbacks. Yeah. Go Hogs. Go Hogs.
Go Razorbacks.
Go Razorbacks.
Do you know what? I'll ask you an interesting question, because talking about, you mentioned earlier about how when you grew up in America, in Arkansas, the education was very much one way, and you think that education has been the result of what we're seeing now politically in America. What was your, like, because for me as a kid, someone who was experiencing, I had a little bit of American schooling in, I guess, like preschool, beginning of like very little school. And then I went to Spain and I had weird international Spanish tutelage through like younger years. And then when I got to England, the education was completely fucking different to both of the previous things that I'd experienced.
Yeah.
And in my head, I look at the difference and I think it's a lot better. I personally feel like the way that the English school system is set up is better in the fact that it allows you to narrow down what you want to do, maybe at a bit of an earlier age, in terms of going, at 16, choose something that you're interested in. If you're not really keen, then you can choose something else when you go to like college, I guess they call it in the UK, and then university, so on. So I think that's beneficial. But I mean, obviously I would disagree with certain things, like why the fuck are we still doing algebra? Like, unless you want to be an engineer and the kid is interested in that, why the fuck are we like, there's certain things that I'm like, you should be steering kids towards what they're interested in. But the school system is so different. What did you think about that, especially as you have kids now in the system in the UK?
So, I first of all, what I'll say is, I know two people who are teachers in the US, and they both have to get food stamps to subsidize their life as a teacher.
That's criminal, man.
So it's not. It should be. It's like
it should. It should be.
The fact that public school teachers in the U.S. get paid below poverty line is a core issue. I mean, you're not going to get good teachers if you're paying them $20,000, $15,000 a year. You're just not. It's like here I think the opening teacher wage is like £35,000, which isn't like loads, but it goes up over time. To I think one of my good friends who's a teacher, she was making $60,000, for a full-time teach job. It's like that you're going to get a pretty good quality of teacher if you pay him 60,000 quid. So the core issue in many ways is teacher salary, and that's a big one. I mean, and it's like that's state to state, locality to locality. If you look at the San Francisco Bay Area, or if you look at New York, teacher salaries are $50,000. But if you look at Arkansas, it's 15. Texas is 15. But that's because a lot of that comes back to the racist history of the U.S. So what I'll say is, the education system here is much more balanced, evenly distributed across the country, much more localized in terms of how big the schools are. My high school in Arkansas was 6,000 kids.
Wow.
Here that would be, there's no school anywhere in this country that's that big for A levels. None. They're all smaller than that. So, part of it's just volume of concentration, and it makes sense in America because you have these huge urban sprawls. You don't want to have 60 schools, especially if you're not paying your teachers shit. You don't want to pay more teachers shit. You just want to keep costs low. So you just have these vast schools, and that clearly affects the ability to deliver quality education. But for really early school, America's pretty good, actually. Also, what I'll say is, if you have money, America is pretty good. But the problem with that is, if you have money and you're in New York or San Francisco or anywhere where religion isn't really a part of day-to-day life, then American school systems are great. If you have money and you're like, I was in Arkansas, and my family wasn't poor, but the issue with my schooling was I'm Jewish, and I'm not going to go to a Baptist school, am I? It's like, So then the schools that were private schools were all religious, every one of them. So I ended up going to the public schools, and the public schools are terrible because all the white people didn't want to pay for education to see black people get educated, so they started pulling money out of the education system.
Yeah.
That's pretty much the core of what happened after the civil rights movement, in most of the South and a lot of the country. Is they basically like, well, I don't want to see somebody else's kid do better than my kid, so I don't want to pay for their education. And that comes to a core ignorance about the value of having an educated population in a general sense.
Dude,
which it takes a lot of knowledge to understand why having a generally educated population is so beneficial.
Yeah. Do you know what? It's interesting you mentioned that, because, you know, I had a very different schooling experience, actually. I was quite lucky that Tom and Tracy brought me over to the UK, actually, because I was severely dyslexic, and I was struggling at school. Like, everything was starting, like in Spain, I started dipping hard, like really hard in my last like year of school, in terms of being able to do things, started acting out because I was just getting stressed about stuff. And then getting to the UK, like you said, the difference between having a classroom filled with 30 kids to a classroom filled with 8 is a world of support that is ridiculously different. So, you know, my class, like the biggest class that I was in at one point was 30 kids, but we were divided into 3 classes, actually. So
that's the biggest. That's his yearly population of his year.
That's the population of, like.
So it's a tiny school. Yeah.
So
yeah, that's great.
It was like, and I can say for a fact, during the younger years, during my years where I was at what we call primary school in the UK, which would be up until, like, I guess 13, 14, I don't know. That's like high school for America, isn't it?
Junior high. Yeah.
Junior high.
Yeah. Getting into junior high.
Yeah. Up until that point, I can't tell you how amazing the education was. I was able to go from reading at one of the lowest levels in the school to being able to read when I was like 13 at the age of a 19-year-old or something ridiculous.
Yeah.
They taught, like,
getting over that.
Yeah, oh my God, like, they got my writing right up to where I needed to be. And, like, I think it was really beneficial. But one thing I was going to say is weird that you mentioned is that, why are all private schools religious? Mine was also religious. Every fucking morning I had to go sit in church and sing hymns and shit. And I'm like, what?
Because religions understand the value of children, because they have a history of it.
Yeah.
Where somehow societies have kind of forgotten how important children are in many ways.
That history is a little bit darker now under some guises of the history. You know?
I mean, but still, you know, there's an understanding of the 3 key parts of life. You know, religions do really, for all the things that religions are shit at, they're really good at the 3 big things. You know, birth, love, death.
Mm-hmm.
Society is actually not, you know, secular society is not particularly good at dealing with those 3 things. Just doesn't really have its shit together when it comes to any of the 3 of them. You know, there's no ceremony. You know, you go get a civil wedding, it's not the same. You go, you know, the ceremonies just aren't there from a secular society standpoint. And governments just can't deal with those 3 things. They're too human.
It's a really good point, and it's why it's something that I'm not sure if you've read a bit about, but it's interesting that during this COVID period that a lot of the countries that are governed by women and have this maternal, like, care instinct, it seems that a lot of those are dealing with it better.
Can I just put forward with you guys? So there's I'll say my idea, which I actually would love to see get traction, and I've started saying it to people pretty regularly. So my idea is that any elected position in a democracy should only be allowed to be filled by somebody who was born with a vagina.
Okay.
And I'm saying that because of transgender things, but I'm saying born with a vagina. You have to be born with a vagina to be an elected official. Period. End of story.
Yeah. So to be the top of the elected official.
Any elected official.
Any elected official.
MPs,
any elected
governors,
official. Any elected official. If you are an elected official in a democracy, you have to be born with a vagina. I would just love to see. We've given men a shot for thousands of years. I would just love to see if women do it differently. Do they? We don't know. People are like, oh, but they'd be masculine. We don't know. We just don't know. I'd just love to see what would happen if that was a general rule.
Men will never let it
give them
happen.
a fucking chance. Give them a chance.
Oh,
I agree.
I would be down as well. And do you know what's interesting is watching New Zealand crush this COVID thing, and I'm pretty sure Germany is in the
Yeah,
pack, and there's like a
but
few other. I think Vietnam
she's
also has a female governor and shit.
but
It's like,
she's really at high risk of losing the next election, despite how good she's
I
doing.
know, I know,
yeah,
I
There's a
know.
huge alt-right in New Zealand that's like,
There's a
this
huge old right. Yeah.
mother, this maternal bitch out. We need a strong man for military. It's like, what are you, fucking nuts?
dude,
Yeah.
I did some
So,
fundraising
yeah.
for New Zealand recently, and I got to speak. So calling just random New Zealanders up, I definitely had that wide variety of. I had a lot of people who were like, yeah, you know, we're doing awesome over here in New Zealand. Like watching America is hilarious. Like, you know, this is great. We're really happy. And then I had a good chunk of people who were like, fuck this. Like the economy is bombing. Jobs are way more important than lives. Like
But I mean, I think in some ways there's some truth to there's a lack of intellectual development in some of those arguments, but there is also, some people are saying, you know, lives. So what I'll say about that is everybody's going to die about something.
Mm.
And I remember when COVID first started, it's like, we need to flatten the curve. And it seems like now we've kind of shifted into, we need to eliminate the curve. And it's like, wait a second, that's a different proposition. You know, I thought the goal was to.
Don't stress. Now it's all good.
We've
Camera's just died battery. I'll switch it.
Hey man, into the dark, you know, let's go into the dark a little bit. But you know, I have friends who have had to give birth by themselves because their birth partners haven't been allowed in, and I'm like, that's probably going to be way more dangerous for that mother than COVID. You know,
that's a really good point. My girlfriend was talking about that the other day. She was like, it's crazy that you aren't that like, I can't remember the example she used, but it was something about how we were being allowed in for certain things, but then mothers weren't allowed to have the father in the room, and you're like, what? That's just crazy.
No, and I had an example of a friend who just gave birth, and the child had to get some. They thought the child might have been born with COVID, and they took a newborn baby away from its mother for 5 days. The mother wasn't allowed to see the baby because they were like, oh, the baby might be born with COVID. We need to test it and see how that might have happened. They just took the baby, and I'm like, I hear that, and I'm like, right, okay,
Yeah.
come on, guys, let's think about what we're doing here.
Yeah.
And I've actually been saying to a little bit now, I don't think it's going to be the secret police. It's going to be the health police. That's going to be that's really starting to infringe on our civil liberties in a profound way. You know, even track and trace stuff like that. It's like, you know, that's a government that can completely see where you are at all times. You know, and it's like that's and part of me is like, well, this is clearly a natural phenomenon, but part of me is also like, well, if you really wanted to see how to control people, the best way to do it is to tell them that they have to be in control to protect their loved ones. Everybody knows that. Every criminal knows that. If you want to control someone, you kidnap somebody they love, and you say, if you don't do this, they'll die. That's always the best way to do it. You don't threaten them. People don't care about themselves that much, but they care about the people they love. So I think the biggest blessing of COVID though is that it doesn't really affect kids. You know, it's like, thank fucking God.
Yeah.
Like
It is
of all the things about it, the fact that, you know, it's like, you know, one in every, you know, what, 40,000 kids has any symptoms at all, except besides like a minor cold. You know, that's, talk about a blessing. You know, it's like if this was killing kids, it would just be, you know, talk about how bad it would get, how quick. It's like, you know, gotta be thankful for the little things sometimes.
It's such a hard situation because
for the little things.
these arbitrary rules that are based on, a lot of it's based on percentiles and on, you know, some sort of algorithm that is going to get us through it, navigate through.
Pub close at 11. COVID starts at 11, guys. Just so you know, the COVID starts at 11.
The one that gets me is the rule of 6.
Yeah. Like that one extra person, COVID. Fuck.
So I must say, we've got a newborn baby, and we've had a few outings with her, and we would go out with one of my son's friends, which is a family of 3, and we're a family of 4. And every single place we've been has looked the other way because it's a fucking babe in my chest.
Yeah.
Like she's not a vector of disease. It's the fact that the government is just like, no, she counts. It's like, well, and this is the problem, is if you make stupid rules, people are going to break them.
Yeah.
But
Because
the
they're stupid
complicated thing is, I mean, you can't. I mean, how would you navigate through exceptions to the? So I think you have to establish, and I don't even know how to do it. You have to establish certain benchmarks, right? Based on an
every
algorithm.
other country's done it. If you're under 5 years old, you don't count.
That makes sense, right? So there's certain countries that are doing it in a way that make more sense than others, and it comes down to like who the real decision makers are in certain countries, and maybe what their own political and educational and historical perspective is, can affect literally tens of millions of people, right? It could be as little as a few people in a room saying, fuck it, like we're shutting it all down, or other people saying, fuck it, we're not shutting any of it down. We're just going to go herd fucking immunity and let's see what happens. Let's see where the chips fall. And it's so random on how your experience with COVID is going to be based on just where you are, not just in a country, but in a location within a country.
So my wife and I have an expression, which is badger, which is we say it as a safe word when we're done talking about COVID. So can I just say badger? I don't want to. We could easily talk about COVID for the next the next hour and have that be a podcast in and of itself.
Totally agree.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, yeah, I'm staying focused. I am excited about some of the next stuff coming up for me personally. I'm in a very blessed position. I've got financial security. My wife's on maternity leave, and actually, had some of this lockdown stuff not come into pass, I would have been extraordinarily busy with work, and I would not have had the time to spend with my new daughter and with my wife to be the carer that was actually necessary. So I don't know what I would have done. I would have either had to cancel a bunch of work commitments, which would have been shitty because at the time nobody else would have been canceling, or I would have had to not be there for them when they needed me the most. And either which of ways would have been terrible. So, it's hard for me because as shitty as it's been, I got hit really acutely hard. But yeah, it's a beautiful thing to be with family and be with people. I was sitting on the floor yesterday because I was a bit bummed, and my son came over to me and he's like, I'm going to give you a cuddle because it will make you feel better. And I'm going to give you a kiss because I love you. And I'm like, oh, dude. I was like, oh, dude, thanks. Like, Daddy needs it. Thank you. Like, it's like you got to be grateful for the relationships. I mean, I love what my mother-in-law said though, because she's just consistently been like, nope, not locking up. Nope, don't care. Nope. And I was like, well, you could get sick. And she's like, well, I'm 75. I've lived a long and good life. It's like, all right.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
More power to you.
There is like, I mean, for us, I think it's certainly for me, from my wife Tracy and I know for you and Nikki, like there has been a lot of positives. There's been a lot of, I think, just the formation of this podcast. I don't even know if it would have happened. I'm pretty sure it wouldn't have.
It would not have happened.
Yeah.
I would have left within 4 months of being back in the UK, and you and me would have never have done this podcast.
Yeah. So and this is like I've been able certainly to be quiet enough and let things settle down enough around me to really start recalibrating and being like, okay, so what the fuck do I actually want to do? And which of the shit that I'm doing right now do I actually not want to do? And can I clear some of that stuff out? And I've had the fortune enough to be like, yeah, I actually don't want to do that shit anymore. Yeah. And I want to kind of spend more time doing this because there is a lot of uncertainty in the future. So fuck it. Let's really hone in on the stuff that makes us happy, makes us laugh, makes us love. And that's been a huge benefit from just being, forced into quietude, right? Into calmness, into focusing on what is it like. You can lose years, dude, chasing something and be like, wake up one day and be like, I've chased it so hard.
This is partly the fucking random chipness of what's going on. Some people have had that time and that space to reflect either through furlough or through being made redundant or whatever. But some people, it's like they're working harder than ever and they're trying to work from home while kids are home, and they're trying to do education for their kids at the same time, and they're like actually way more like than they've ever been in their lives. So it's so fucking random how
so random.
So random.
I mean, the stories you hear stories about, it's like a bad lottery, a terrible lottery. If you're in a bad situation already, it's going to crank the volume up on that because you're trapped in that bad situation.
But
if you're in a really
for me,
good situation, it
yeah.
may, you know, enhance that and let that bloom even more. And then for others, they're in a neutral situation, and also depending on what their emotional makeup is, what their mental makeup is, what their partner is doing, what their friends are doing, all of that contributes to like what the experience is. But it is completely a crapshoot, right?
You gotta just keep art it, man. Keep art it.
Do you know what?
Keep art it.
I actually wanted to ask you a really interesting question, dude, about something that I read, which was and actually talking to you, I can basically tell that, you know, you're into a lot of like historical philosophy and old stuff. And what I want to ask is, I think I noticed on one of your feet, you have a tattoo on one of your feet.
Yes.
Cool. I thought I noticed that in one of the videos. I wanted to ask, obviously in ancient ancient philosophy, obviously there's loads of like tattoos and like
is that a jellyfish?
Expression in that way and stuff like that.
It's a peace bird.
Okay.
Nice. Dove. Yeah, dove of peace.
I want to ask, like, where does that sit for you? Like, do you like, because obviously with all tribes, like all the way through China, you know, you look at New Zealand, Polynesia, you know, all of that, there's loads of tattoos. And as an artist, I wanted to ask, where does tattooing sit in your like mind of the creative arts world?
So like any form of expression, there's people who do it as art and there's people who do it as a craft. So that'll be true of painting, of, you know, illustrating, graphic design. Some people do it as a fine art. That's always going to be the minority of people, because they're not just doing something that's asked of them. It's not just a commission. They're expressing themselves through it as a medium as well. And to me, to be classified as an art in many respects, it has to be something from the artist put on whatever canvas they're using or whatever page they're using. It can't just be at the request of somebody else. They have to have their own identity in it in a conscious way. So for example, I have a friend named Ziggy. He's an artist and he has a tattoo, and the tattoo artist specializes in tattooing brush strokes. Nice. And he has this beautiful, it's like kind of 4 brush strokes that look like they're coming over each other. But the amount of, but you know, it's actually tattoo lines. Like those are really, really fucking detailed lines, and the amount of skill it would take, but also the idea of I want to tattoo brush strokes as a calling card kind of thing. That is an art. You know, it's some tattoos are a craft. Most tattoos are a craft, but some are art. But I think that's true for all arts. You know, if you're an illustrator, some illustrators just do it because it pays the bills, and actually that's most of them. And some do it because they want to express themselves through their illustrations. And there's always a balance there between those two things.
You know, what's interesting is, and some artists have found have explored something, have discovered something that has been truly creative and truly artistic. And then they're almost like in like golden handcuffs, because they know that has been a calling card, that has been lucrative in some way. And they have to, you know, sort of wash, rinse, repeat, and they get trapped in that. And that it goes from being an art to a craft, right? They've discovered an art, and now they've probably honed it and mastered it.
See, I would say that's different though. I think if you've discovered something like that lightning in a bottle concept, if you keep going into it over and over, it's like a musician who has a hit song, and they have to perform that song their whole lives. And every time it's still fresh. Every time it's still different. Every time it still has that weight. Even if that weight then becomes, I can't believe this is my life and I have to do this fucking song again. There was a guy during lockdown who hit lightning in a bottle, and he actually decided not to keep going towards it. It was a very interesting decision. I don't know if you saw it, but he was a portrait artist, and he did a self-portrait. And then he did a self-portrait of himself doing the self-portrait. And then he did a self-portrait of himself doing a self-portrait of himself doing it. And he got to 6. And by the 6th one, I think he had over 1 million likes on that. Now, if he had kept doing that for the next 20 years of self-portrait within self-portrait and just kept doing that, think where that would have taken his self-portrait. Think of the other ways creative expression would have come through that if he had just stuck with it, had the discipline to just keep fucking doing it.
Dude, can I challenge that? Like,
yeah,
I'm just picturing that. Was the limitation the size of the canvas?
No, he kept making them smaller.
Oh yeah. So he had to make
Yeah.
so I'm taking a pic. I'm doing a self-portrait of a person doing a self-portrait, right?
Of a person doing a self-portrait.
Yeah. Doesn't
So
that eventually?
eventually it just became like the
Yeah.
first one with the spec. Yeah. But so that's what I'm saying is eventually, and also eventually, like I could just see him like dressing up for the self-portrait and
Yeah.
getting himself in a room with like fucking stars and crazy shit
Different
going on.
versions.
Exactly. And if he had just kept going that way, he would be regarded as one. And he was the first person to ever think of doing that, which is hard to
Mm.
believe because it
Yeah.
seems really obvious, self-portrait of a self-portrait, obvious.
Yeah.
But he's the first person who's ever done it. And it's like
It's
if
a,
he had
it's
just kept doing it, he would be one of the all-time most famous artists. It's very strange.
yeah. I think it's also a lot of it is based on your mental makeup, right? If you're
Yeah.
if you're like John Lennon, you want to break out of the Beatles and do some new shit, and it might be
Yeah.
with Yoko, it might be your own solo stuff. If you're Paul McCartney, you'd rather keep the band together. I mean, if the band's going to break up, I will do my own shit because there's no band anymore. But I'd rather us just keep pumping it out for the next 30
Yeah.
years and like write it out. So a lot of it is just based on like, I don't want to keep doing this shit anymore. I don't care how like much money it's making, how much exposure I'm getting, how many fans I have, how much accolade I'm getting. I just want to do some other shit.
Well,
Otherwise, other types of people are like, let's just see, like, let's really become a master's master at really unlocking this, like really finding the nuanced, like expression in this particular thing.
see, if I hadn't been the second category, I would have never got into sculpture.
Okay.
Because having these rainbow pieces as a kind of structure to work around means that with that structure, I can play with other forms of expression. If I didn't have that structure, me playing with those expressions just looks like experimentation. But with that structure, it has a form to it. It has a meaning. It has a definition, and it communicates what I want to communicate, despite what the material outcome is. So I mean, yeah. So I'm very much on the side of like, you find something that you believe in and you're happy to share. But also, he didn't give it enough time. The
Yeah.
Beatles were together for what, 30 years before they broke up? 20 years? This kid did it for 6 months.
Yeah.
Give it a year, man. Like, just
Dude,
see
6
what
months is,
happens,
dude, in this day and age, 6 months is 30 years.
whatever. Like paintings take ages, so give it time. Give it time.
True.
Let it give it a few years of doing that before you make that decision that I need to do something else.
Doug, do you know, like I was gonna say, you mentioned like how you use your like basis of rainbow colors and whatnot, and a lot of your art is very geometric and is usually like you said, like I find that there's always some sort of stamp of black in there to give the contrast to all these beautiful colors that you then throw in, and like will base around, typically your pieces are very philosophical as well, that they're based around either an idea, a motive, or a feeling or something like that you're typically will then like write in the caption, which I've been enjoying reading your captions actually just as much as some of the art. And I wanted to ask you, you said, you're trying to find this like variation within your style. Is that what led you to doing like more 3D, like abstract stuff? I've seen some of your pieces are more like of kind of the same geometric stuff, but then just brought out of the page a bit more.
I mean, yeah, it's a combination of that and actually having the first studio space I've had. That's a devoted studio space where I can do some building.
Okay, nice.
But it's having the structure there to build upon, having the foundations of, if you're going to do something repetitively like that, you have to believe in it. So one of the reasons I do these is, like, as you mentioned, they all have the inherent philosophy of balance between light and dark. If you look at the kind of yogic theory behind it, or Buddhist theory, you have the dark, which is pre-birth, the unknown. Then you have the journey between life, which is the colors of the light spectrum. And then you have death, which is going into the light. And that is the core of kind of any story. You have beginning, middle, end, or, any phase of things. I'm a big believer in threes in a general way. So, as I reproduce this theme over and over, I have faith that every time I reproduce it, it's communicating that philosophy. And that, I believe, and my experience has led me to believe that philosophy is inherently unifying, is inherently good, and is inherently calming to people to give some sense of balance. So I'm happy to do it over and over and over and share it over and over and over. It doesn't, I don't have to think, oh, is this just some kind of nepotistic, or not nepotistic, is this some kind of vain expression of myself? Am I just, I don't have this thing where I like do celebrity portraits where I'm like, oh, this is just pop art. It's so meaningless, you know.
Yeah.
I'm just doing this for the money, and I don't even care about the art.
Mm.
So I don't have that at all. I mean, at the same time, I don't make nearly as much money as those people do. So
Yeah.
there you go. So yeah, it's a beautiful thing to try and share an idea, but it takes a lot longer if you're going to be sharing it as an idea and not as an individual piece of art. My goal is to share a concept, and I'm using art as the medium for that concept. And that's a different approach to most artists. Most artists have a thing that they want to share, and then they kind of develop a concept around it. I've kind of gone the other way. That's partly because of my background and other things, but yeah, I think by the time I'm in my like 50s, this stuff will have started to be communicated more widely, more accepted, more understood. But it takes time, and I've accepted that's okay. It takes a while.
Yeah, it reminds me
I'm
of
in it for the long game, man.
Just like China.
Hey, they're doing well, huh?
Yeah, they are. Yeah,
No,
they're
it's-
just going on.
your contention that you're in the one group that is really interested and motivated to really explore and to master a certain style, a certain area, reminds me of I got a tattoo of an Enzo circle, and the story of the Japanese artist that mastered the Enzo brushstroke is literally like a lifetime of the real like minute mastery of how to just get it so that there's a certain amount of ink that flows through, and that it's thicker in one area and thins out and then fades away, and the striations are a certain way, and there's a whole philosophy of the mastery, which is really kind of cool once you get into it. And really, but there's also, you need the audience to appreciate that, right?
Yeah.
If you lined up 10 Enzo circles for me, I'd be like, they're cool. And there could be a real masterpiece in there that I might not, because I'm just not sophisticated enough to know what beautiful Enzo circles are from very average Enzo circles. And I think it's the same with aspects of art as well.
We both have Enzo circle tattoos.
Yeah.
I just realized that actually my most recent one is also an Enzo circle.
I got a universal compass on my back, but
Oh, don't. Yeah, that's not even my like. I call them. I have a couple of what I call my white girl tattoos, my like pumpkin spice tattoos. Like my Starbucks pumpkin spice. I've got like a feather. I'm not sure if you can see. I've got like a feather with like birds breaking away here. It's
so back in the day, I used to work at Starbucks, and my favorite drink back in the day was an iced raspberry soy latte.
There it is.
Raspberry and milk. It's very
yeah, it's super weird. Keeping consistent at something is and battling through it and doing it for years and honing your style and honing your craft is very interesting. And I would say it's a lot more gratifying than when you
satisfying,
satisfying.
Both, yeah.
When you do like find years of work and then you see the result of that, rather than bit bopping from different things and getting like, I feel like you get that honeymoon phase with things when you do them for a short period of time, and then after that honeymoon phase you get into the like real nitty gritty of it. And I think like for me, I always go back to skateboarding. It's been like my thing my entire life. Like from the moment I was 8 years old and we put my first board together, I've not had a skateboard somewhere within like reaching distance, and I think it's really weird that I appreciate skateboarding so bloody much because of the journey that it's taken me on. And it's weird. I have been skating, and I would say that I take my board on journeys, but it's taken me on a journey of community, of self-growth, of failure, of putting it down for a year and then picking it back up and being like, I need it again. Like I can't put it down. I need it back, and it's like, so I think
the beauty of that though is that experience is transferable.
Yeah.
You can then you can take all of the components of that journey and look at something else and be like, I want to experience that journey with this thing now.
Yeah.
And it won't be identical, but it will have a similar arc to it, won't it?
Yeah.
I just want to go back to your Enzo circles and having 10. I know we're getting into time stuff, but
Oh, don't stress me.
you said 10 Enzo circles in a line, and there might be a masterpiece there. So that reminds me of, like, if you think about Olympic sprinters, right? Those are all professional runners. They're
Yeah.
all the fastest guys on the world. You know, if you put me against any of those guys, or even probably the women, they
Yeah.
destroy me. They would,
Yeah.
they'd be way in front of me. But then you look at them on the TV together, and they're, Usain Bolt's the fastest. Now, for me, it depends on what your goal is. Do you want to be Usain Bolt? Because then you're going to be setting yourself up for failure. Or do you just want to be on the pitch with the other guys? I'm not trying to get a gold medal. I just want to be on the pitch with the guys who are getting the gold medals. So the part of it's understanding what you're trying to accomplish, and people are like, well, not everybody can be a professional artist. It's like, yeah, everyone can be a professional artist. Not everybody can be Andy Warhol. Not everybody can be, because that takes a huge amount of luck, natural, there's so many other things that go into being the top tier. I just want to be a professional doing it. That's it. And, it's a very different expectation of what that life looks like and how it develops and unfolds and things like that. So yeah, I think, having the 10 Enzos together is a good example of, like, but they're all professional Enzo circles. Ours. Well, like, that's what they do. They get paid to do it.
Do you know what's interesting, Doug, is, I would say that when I guess, you can say that, like some wouldn't be as good or some would be, but yeah, they're all professional. But I would say in some cases especially with like sport and things like that, I was just thinking, like, when in life are, like, humans, the professionals, being like, I'm okay with being a professional. I would say, like, actors are an example, and, like, musicians are examples of people that are like, I'm a professional. I'm not getting Grammys. I'm not getting Oscars, but I'm still a professional. I'm selling out shows. Who cares? But I would say, like, sports is a really weird one because
no way. Professional athletes are definitely dialing it in. Kobe Bryant, one of the great Kobe Bryant quotes was, did you find high school or the pros harder? He said high school was way harder because everybody was trying. And the pros, lots of guys just were there for work.
Yeah.
They didn't care if they won. They were getting paid anyway.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's chasing greatness.
I was gonna say, I think it's the chasing, because for me as an athlete, the one thing that I found when I was growing up and I was competing in sports and I was doing it is that on times when I did go all out, and there was times when I really achieved, I was a champion in karate in Spain, and I worked my ass off for that for years, and I fucking achieved, and that was, like, gratifying and satisfying and rewarding and everything that I wanted it to be, and it still is as an adult now. But what's interesting, though, is I know that there's other sports like basketball where I know that I had talent, where I know that I had ability, where I know that, not only, like, multiple of my coaches were like, leadership, like, let's, like, look into that kind of thing. And I think what bums me out now retrospectively to that is going, what if? And I don't get me wrong, that you can always go through life going, what if, what if I'd done that? What if I pushed through that? But I am always curious to go, and I think some athletes, for example, I would say, especially for me and Tom, as we like martial arts, watching UFC fighters, people like, recently a guy called Daniel Cormier, who was double champ. He was, world champ, and he had his final fight and retired on a loss. Like, to me, I feel bad for him knowing that he retired on a loss, and that for the rest of his life, the last thing he did in the octagon was, like, lose. And I think, to me, I feel like that would. Oh no, he doesn't. He definitely doesn't care. He's made his money. He's punched some dudes. He's so happy.
I think it's a combination. I think it will eat at him, but when he looks at the entirety,
the whole picture
of his career, he will look at that with pride.
Yeah,
and he'll look at the whole package of the commitment and the achievements and the failures. All of that is a huge achievement.
Yeah, well,
but he will have that last bit, like the month.
But he's not done either. He's still coaching. He's still watching. He's still involved. He's still, he's not. It's not like that's the end of his public career. That's the end of his fighting career. But it's not the end of his career. Yeah, that's the thing. He's got another 50 years of life left to do things.
He's one of the
So,
lucky
you know,
ones who has, or maybe not lucky, but one of the great ones in another way of being able to transition quickly
He's gotten out quickly.
out of
yeah.
greatness, out of elite greatness into something else almost immediately. Like
I think it's easier now than it's ever been with social
Yeah.
media, because
Yeah.
you've got the followers. You just say, well, this is what I'm doing now, and people are like, sure.
yeah, yeah.
You know,
good
I think
point.
it's easier now than it used to be in many ways. Although I do love that about that movie being John Malkovich, when he's just like, right, I'm going into puppetry now, and his agent's just like, sure, great, let's do it.
Yeah.
It's like, and then all of a sudden, you know, it's like, oh, puppetry is a thing. It's like, yeah, I love that idea that it's just like, once you have that volume of celebrity or volume of fame, it's pretty easy to parlay that nowadays into other things. I mean, by the way, this is one of the 3D pieces you were mentioning, which I'm sure you've seen in the background.
Yeah.
It is actually quite three-dimensional. It's
Nice.
Yeah.
That's super sick. I love that.
So, dude, what
Yeah.
are those?
I
What are
actually
those?
thought those were paintbrushes in paint pots that you were like gonna use for your painting.
yeah.
How did you make those? Are those actually like? Is that a mold
are actual-
of paintbrushes?
No. I painted paintbrushes, which I love
Oh.
because you're never supposed to let paint dry on brushes. It's like, I love that. I actually had a friend of mine come over, and he's like, dude, you should really go for that, like, way more, because I've done 2 of those, and they take ages to do. But like, they're really gratifying when they're done. That one's not quite done. It needs some touching up, but they're fun to make. And I think, you know, those are going to be something that I've never seen someone else do them. So I do a few. I'm lucky because I'm playful enough. I mean, I come from a lot of this art stuff because I actually spent about 15 years in restaurants, and about 6 of those as a really high level pastry chef. And I still think a lot of that informs my art in terms of, you know, you spend 2 days making a cake, and then you just fucking eat it. You know, like, so
You're
there's always
that
a level
first
of,
person, like, dig into it.
yeah. There's always a level of me that's just like, this is just for eating. It's not like, I don't have that. I've actually had to become more disciplined about being more precious about art objects, because that's not my natural tendency. My natural tendency is like, fuck it, I'll just make another one. But I've actually, because I sometimes, I think once, like, someone bought one from me, and then I delivered it to them and had a fucking hole in the canvas. They're like, what the fuck? You know, I'm like, oh, sorry. Let me fix that up for you. And they're like, you can't just fix it. I'm like, well, I did. And there's loads of different theories on that. I mean, I could get into, it's one of my favorite, last story. So at Spike Island, there's this South Korean artist who's definitely from the kind of irreverent side of arts. He used to let his pieces sit outside in his shed to purposefully get them moldy, which is when he would deliver them to customers. But anyway, he had a retrospective show at Spike Island in Bristol, and I was working at Spike Island a little bit at the time, so I got to do the pre-launch kind of tour with the artist who'd flown over from South Korea. And as we were walking around, one of the pieces that was on loan from a collector in LA, he took a marker and started drawing on it. Now, this is a piece that's probably worth well over $1 million, and it's not his. It was on loan from a collector in LA, and he was like, "Oh, I've been wanting to see that one again because I didn't think it was finished." And he just started drawing on it, and the fucking Spike Island people were like, "No!" But luckily the collector was kind of okay with it, because that would be like an insurance fucking nightmare. The artist, because it's like, but it's not his art anymore because he sold it to this other person. But at the same time, he's like, well, I fucking made it. So
but dude, I kind of think, like, if I was the owner of that piece of art and the artist came back and started doodling on it again, I would look at that as like another level of, it's almost like the Banksy thing.
Luck. That's luck that collector was in that mind frame and not in the, that's just dumb luck. Because that's just dumb luck, because you don't know who owns these fucking things. You know what I mean?
It's true, but like the Banksy thing
what's no, there's a line in a movie where is it? Oh God, I need to pull this out of my brain. It's coming. Basically, someone's like, you see that? Oh, it's a Will Ferrell movie. It's Step Brothers. There we go. Finally, it came to me. So Step Brothers. Yeah. When he pulls out the katana, he's like, "This is an actual katana signed by Randy Jackson." And you're like, what? Like, why the fuck is Randy Jackson signed this katana? He's like, it's the only thing I had on me at the time, man. So it's signed by Randy Jackson. It's even more valuable now. It's like, no, dude, it's not.
Because Randy Jackson's a fucking legend, obviously. God.
That's a perfect kind of representation of what we've been talking about.
Do you know what I mean? Like, it's that whole, like, you get something, someone else, like I've seen it on the internet, someone gets like some like sneakers from like a pro basketball player and then somehow has like a musician sign them, and they're like, now I have these uber expensive shoes because they're LeBron shoes signed by
Steven Tyler.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, what? Yeah, that's super weird. I was gonna say, actually, based off of two things that you said a second ago, I wonder if like the whole niche thing coming up, like you said, painting paintbrushes isn't meant to be done, which is why you kind of like it, because it's like, you know, and I feel that as well as a skater. I wonder if, what if with all these people with social media likes, and you know, you said you've got this following, say you're an actor and you're like, I'm an actor, and you got 100,000 followers, and then you're like, right, I'm now gonna do shadow puppetry. That's my new thing, and you're all gonna be like a part of it. Like, I wonder if something that, I don't know, an idea for you and me down the line, if we ever do get a decent following, is just right hand turning people and just being like, I'm gonna throw you and see how many of you still like, it sounds bad, like eating my ass. Do you know what I mean? Like, how many of you are still like, oh, he's still like, oh, great podcast. Like, I'm gonna throw a right turn, like, oh, we no longer do creative podcasts, we now do farming podcasts, guys. It's all about agriculture, and
hey, if they're interesting, if they're good, people will come along for the ride.
Yeah, that's
exactly.
true.
If you're like, we're gonna do farming, here's my sister, she has a garden. People are gonna be like, come on, guys, that's crap. You know. But if it's still good, if it maintains the quality, any right turn, people will come along with you. As long as you maintain, like I've had a similar thing. I'm switching into writing a bit from visual art, which is a big change for me to go from like 15 years of being a painter with a bit of poetry to being like, no, I'm a writer and I actually write children's books. That's a bit, for me, that feels like a big shift. But because the children's books are quite good, I've actually had a lot of people be like, oh, cool, let's read it, you know. And it's like,
nice.
So there's an element of like, if you're doing it with quality behind it,
yeah,
then people will come along for the ride. If you're doing it, you're just like, I'm just doing this to do it, but I have no fucking clue what I'm doing. I just wanted to throw you guys a left turn. People know it. You know, Kanye West is a good example of someone who's tried to throw those curveballs, and people are like, that's just a curveball for a curveball's sake. It's, you know, it's like, you got to have some element of doing it well, even if you're throwing a curveball. You know, it still has to be a strike.
That's a really good point, you know, and Kanye is a good example of that, especially with like the whole like, it's so funny. I mentioned this the other day to my girlfriend. I was like, the MAGA thing is such a play, because at the end of the day, if you listen to College Dropout, Late Registration, Graduation, and Twisted Dark Fantasy, or 808 and Heartbreaks, there's at least 3 songs that I can name out of those albums where he mentions Trump and how much he fucking hates him. Like, that is a known fact that Kanye is not a fan of Donald Trump pre this like MAGA bullshit. Like, come on now. Like, let's be real. But I agree with you. You know, it's interesting. And something that I would say is like weird is you've got people like James Franco and people like that who are very much within the acting world, but also within poetry, within writing, within art, within many different fields. And that's one of my favorite things.
I love his art. James Franco's art's wonderful.
Yeah.
But he's got the curse that the fine art institutions will never accept a artist who was a celebrity first.
Yeah, exactly.
There's actually lots of good reasons for that to be the case. Even though it's frustrating for someone like James Franco or Jim Carrey, who desperately wants to be in fine art institutions, they will never get that because you can never extricate the fame from the quality of art. You can't disentangle it. And there's this really strongly founded fantasy in the fine art world that it's all about the art, which there's a hair of truth in it, but overall it's a lot of personality as well, of course. But if you're banking on being a celebrity, there's a restrictive element that the fine art world will kind of be like, nope, you're not allowed in here, even though your work sells. Don't care. So yeah.
Is it also like within an art form? Is there that kind of exclusivity to a certain part? So I'm thinking about you. I heard you guys mention
something about painting. Something about
here's the
painting
thing.
and fine art more.
Like you've got a guy like John Frusciante, who you guys mentioned him earlier, who's like an exquisite master at all things guitar, right? But especially, you know, his fame has been very much tied to the art, the explosion of the Red Hot Chili Peppers. but he has, you know, at any given time, he's got a half a dozen different projects and different aspects of music going on. So with those, like if he's in electronica, is he being judged more harshly? He's still in music.
The
right?
fuck is
Yeah.
electronica? What generation are you from? Jesus fucking Christ! What the fuck is electronica? Where the what? Still disco 70s for you, isn't it? Fuck it out.
What's the fuck? What's the actual,
It depends on the
like-
person. It depends on the person. Dave Grohl's, so it depends on the person. Dave Grohl's has been able to get away with it completely.
Yeah.
Going from Nirvana to Foo Fighters to that
Yeah.
random amazing thing he did a few years ago where he played all 10 instruments in the song and made a video out of it, which is unbelievably good. You know, so it depends a lot about on the individual about and the quality of the content that they release. You know, like if he releases an electronica thing and it doesn't have that heart, that
What's the
soul, that
word? Is it
vibe.
not electronica?
I would go with, at this point, it's classified as EDM, which would just be electronic dance music, which is just the umbrella
I knew
terminology.
what you meant.
Dude,
knew
I
what you
like
meant.
electronica. It's one word.
Dude, no, I got you. It's okay. I understand. I'm your son, so I understand you. Just wanted to
I
make
think
sure that
electronica sounds cooler than EDM.
yeah, well, EDM sounds like EDM sounds like bloody
Sounds like a disease.
daisy chains and paisley headbands and minimal clothing and lots of ecstasy. That's what EDM sounds like to me. It's awful.
That is not my scene. I'm a massive.
No, me neither. I wanted to ask
Nerd,
as well.
man.
You said a second ago, like almost they will never be able to be fine artists because of the like area that they are within fame and the entanglement they have with that. It's interesting that you mention that because I think so many people, so many legends throughout time are appreciated in, like, I guess their martyrdom, you know, after they've, you know, been dead for ages, in some cases dead, or in some cases past whatever they create. And, you know, you look at, I mean, I was just trying to think off the top of my head. Look at Nirvana, like these days. How many kids walk around with Nirvana t-shirts and listen to Smells Like Teen Spirit and stuff? And, like, don't get me wrong, they had a fan base when it was there, but the explosion afterwards has been fucking crazy. And, like, again, you look at art, you look at, like, many artists, many writers throughout time as well. Like, there's so many writers that have written novels that then are appreciated so many years after they've died. You know, it's crazy. And
Not that many.
Tolkien's a perfect example.
No, he was appreciated by his contemporaries. Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit was a massive success.
Yeah.
It was like a stratospheric success. I mean,
The Hobbit was.
I think the mythology around things happening after you die is pretty off the mark by and large historically. You know, some of the very big few examples, and I saw you were like almost avoiding it. It's like Van Gogh, of course, but even that one, I mean, you need someone to carry on your legacy.
Yeah.
It has to be at least one person. I mean, Van Gogh's the most interesting. I mean, he basically, the only reason Van Gogh is known is he was known for his letters. I mean, he got famous as a writer because his sister-in-law was left destitute with 3 children, and the only thing she had was his paintings and his letters correspondence, and she published a book. And the book became a #1 bestseller. And then people were like, so who is this guy as an artist? And then they started looking at his paintings. So he had a champion, which even though she was not a willing champion, she had no choice. She was, you know, literally starving to death with her children, and she decided to do it. So you need someone to carry that voice on, or else it is just going to be lost to the end.
That's a strong point. Da Vinci's another great example in that, because of, I mean, I read an article the other day about, I think he's considered currently one of the top 3 heart surgeons on the planet, is currently using a theology and a thesis that was created by Leonardo da Vinci, and he actually uses original drawings and anatomy that Leonardo da Vinci used, and that's how he formulated his whole ability as a heart surgeon. And you know, it's one of those that you said there's these champions that carry that on, like with his helicopter, his parachute ideas, and all of his codexes that he wrote. People just brought those into fruition later on.
He thought his art was just paying the bills. He hated art. He thought it was stupid. He was like, but you know, it's a thing that is actually, it's, you know, it's one of the great fallacies is that people think they're going to be remembered for one thing, and then they're remembered for something that they think is stupid. You know,
Well, I
that's
think
what
it's
artists
also
know.
like,
He
I
thought
think to
Mona
your-
Lisa was terrible. You know, he was just like, oh, I'm just doing this to pay the bills.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think to your point, like there is a level of fame and recognition while they were being famous and recognized. I was thinking about James Dean at the time of
Yeah.
like, so he was, you know, he was absolutely recognized as doing something very different, very unique, and you know, brilliant at the time. But there's a different level of like post-mortem explosion into becoming this like, you know, this human icon that we will immortalize as a, you know, sort of as a demigod almost. Like, and that's I think what you're
Well,
talking about. Like there's
it's
levels,
limited.
right?
It's a limited resource once you're dead.
Yeah, yeah, exactly,
There's
exactly.
not going to be any more of it. And
Yeah,
especially if it's when you're in your prime and you're in your late 20s, the 27 club, you know,
yeah,
that's it. You know, that's the transition from being, I mean, there's a lot of transitions that happen around that age. You know, you can't handle drugs the same way as you could when you're in your early 20s. You can't, and your emotions start to change into being more adult. You know, you have to start to take responsibility for stuff. And, you know, if you're in a paid position of intense celebrity, you either kind of make that transition or you don't. And, you know, that's consistent enough across time. You know, I think it was Mozart, you know, Beethoven was, and Mozart was 27 as well. You know, it's like that's been going back a long way. That's
Yeah.
a time. And if you look at, you know, astrologers, I'm not a huge believer in astrology, but you know, 27 is a big shift in astrological charts. You know, that's a huge change time. So, you know, it makes sense that, you know, that's a time, but it's partly physical, it's partly emotional, it's partly developmental. But yeah, I'm glad I'm not 27 anymore.
I think you're.
I mean, that was my transition, was going full time into arts around that age. So for me, it was like giving up on what I'd done before and being like, right, art is the thing. I'm going to go towards that.
Yeah. You know, I think yeah, it's a good point. And yeah, you don't have a choice about what you get remembered for, and it's really interesting. You said there's so many people that are out there that wanted to be remembered for one thing and got remembered for something else. You know, and it's really interesting. And I would even put some people like maybe Muhammad Ali in that category a little bit. You know, in terms of, you know, his boxing accolades, maybe he wanted to either be remembered for that, but in some cases, a lot of the memory of him is his political and his like,
or vice versa.
on,
Maybe he's
or vice
more
versa.
Exactly, yeah. And you know, it's really interesting that, you know, I think
here's the other thing,
you
though.
know,
I think some people
outcomes for people.
Yeah, I think some people have been strategic about it as well. I mean, you look about this controversy in Bristol about Colston, like that didn't happen by accident, where there's statues of Colston and there's the art center is named by Colston, right? There was some sort of like, probably while he was still alive, some sort of like campaign that was structured to immortalize Colston. While in his, you know,
point.
in his, you know, now here we are, I don't know how many years later, but people are trying to pull that back now. But there's a lot of, look,
Literally.
I'm famous, I want to immortalize how famous I am, so I'm going to put some things in place, like I'm going to have my name on top of this university, and I'm going to pay $1 billion to do that, because I know in 50 years there's going to be, you know, still thousands of kids walking through there saying there is X hall, right? And so there is a little bit of strategy behind campaigning after you're dead to immortalize yourself, right? Whether it's your family or you have the wealth to do it yourself.
Yeah,
And
Courtney Cox did huge amounts to keep Kurt Cobain valid. You know, she's not Courtney Cox, Courtney Love.
Courtney Love, yeah.
Courtney Love. She, you know, she was a campaigner for Nirvana to this day. She continues to promote their music.
Yeah.
You know, partly for her own benefit, but you know, she but also partly because that was her husband. She loved him. You know, she wants to keep his memory alive because she misses him. You know, it's like there's a human aspect there. You know, it's not all nefarious stuff of like, I want to be immortal. Sometimes it's just like, oh, I miss him.
Yeah, that's true.
And do you know what's with the nefarious stuff though? I would say that's very old school. Like that's so like kings and like
I think you could make an argument Bill Gates is doing that right now.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a really good point.
You know, how many Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation hospitals are there around the world now?
And
here's the thing,
not only
though.
that, but also going, I promise that by the time I die, I will have given half of my wealth away.
Yeah.
That's a promise that he's made now.
Yeah.
Like I said.
But I think also, I think maybe the qualifier is there's ways to do it so that there's name recognition to something. There's other ways to do it, which I would argue with Bill and Melinda Gates, is there's a net positive to where many of his Bill Gates foundational type efforts are going to. So if there's a net positive, I'm giving him a pass on most of that. And if he is immortalized for having whether it's in the field of vaccines or education or anything else.
Whoa, hold up. Thought. What if at the moment he looks like a really good guy because he's done some pretty good shit now? However, fast forward 100 years down the road, when computers are taking over the world,
true,
are we then going, Bill Gates
was the Adolf Hitler,
was the Colston of, because of what he's created now that's now killing people?
Yeah,
you don't know. That's what I'm saying. You don't know.
Yeah,
people don't know. People do their best. But also, you just gotta be kind to people. People do their best with the information they have at the time, and then history looks with a different lens. What is the expression? History is a different country.
Yeah.
It's like that's a completely different thing that happened. I mean, knowledge, I love that about humans, that we can gather knowledge. It's such an amazing thing that we can learn from our mistakes as a species. We're the only species that does that.
Yeah.
It's like pretty much what separates us from animals is that we can write shit down and be like, hey, don't do that again. That was a bad idea. So instead of having to be like, oh, that's poisonous, we can just read and say, oh, that's poisonous. Don't eat that. It's like, that's a huge thing. Written language, visual language. Fuck, man, that's what separates us.
That was a big one.
Elephants,
a big one.
Yeah, elephants have as much capacity for thought as we do probably, but they don't have a written language, so they can only do it through verbal, what they've remembered from what they've seen in their own lives. Whereas we can actually read a book and be like, hey, this book says this, and it's probably true. It's like,
Dude,
try to create a pen for an elephant to write with. It's difficult. It's just.
There's no thumbs anywhere.
There's no thumbs anywhere.
There's no thumbs anywhere. Well,
just need a big trunk brush,
Yeah. Do you know what? I think it's a really nice place to kind of round this up. Just be nice to people.
Elephant pens.
I actually really like that.
I'm okay with ending on elephant pens.
Yeah, me too. I think it's a really interesting place that we are at in time. And I think you're right, Doug. Being nice to people and leaving your mark, knowing that in the moment when you do something, you're doing that for the right reason, and whatever happens down the road, you know that in your moral compass, in your conscious, that you've done something good or nice or whatever.
Let the chips fall as they may.
100%. Yeah. I think at this point in time, we need unity and we need a bit of love. We need a son who comes up and tells us, Dad, I'm gonna give you a hug because you're awesome, and I'm gonna give you a bit of love. I'll give you a kiss because I love you. That's what's up. We all need a bit of that right now.
Gotta share it, man. Make love. Literally make love. I mean, yeah.
Make love and peace, not war and hate, man. It's been too long that we've been saying that shit and it's not been fucking happening. Jesus Christ.
You gotta say it to the right. Distribution's always been the problem.
You're totally right. Right, guys, this has been episode 24. Homie and the Dude. It's been an absolutely amazing one. Yeah, Doug, I was gonna say, give us your plug all your stuff, all the stuff you're working on. Where can people find you? All that stuff.
Right. So my name is Douglas Karson. You can find me on Instagram as DAK Artist, where I post kind of random fun things, little videos and such. I am currently working on a children's book called Ted the Tiny Tiger, and I'm working with an editor. Should be looking at launch sometime next year. And I've got a project coming off called Keep Art It. You might be seeing that sometime soon at the Galleries Mall in Bristol, where we will be running hopefully running an art trail with a few artists to try to promote them and promote some of the shops there. And it's really exciting because it's like super beneficial for everybody involved, which is like my favorite kind of project. So yeah. Oh, and my website is www.dougkarson.com. And I kind of am on Twitter, but I don't really use it much. But if you reach out to me there, I'll eventually get back to you. So that's the main things.
Amazing. Quick intersection. That is the first time, I think, in maybe like 7 or 8 years that I've heard someone put the www at the beginning of a web address.
Is that right?
Do you remember years ago?
I'm dating myself. Oh, sorry.
No, dude, like I was just thinking that. I was like, holy shit. When the internet first started, everyone would be like www.amazon.com.uk.
I still like it. I like the way it sounds.
Yeah. Like it's crazy that we used to give full. Now you're just like, oh, just go on Amazon, Facebook, like just type in Facebook and it'll come up. But back in the day, it was like www.reddit.forward/.backward/.co.gov.com. Okay, I'll write that down. Like, give me a second.
While you're listening to electronica.
While
you're listening to electronica. That's the way forward.
Cool. So for us on our end, guys, same as always. Veast is doing their amazing Saturday delivery deal. It's perfect for date night, guys. It's real great. You get 3 courses for 2 people. So 6 courses, 3 for each person.
Totally gonna eat that.
It's absolutely badass.
Check it out.
For us guys, you know what it is, Holy Trinity. The big one now, I wanna really address this because it's something that we talk about. The Holy Trinity and all parts of this really matter. But the big one, guys, is sharing our post. Sharing is the best way that you can help anyone that you believe in. If you share their content on your social media, on all of your social medias, that's an extra 100, an extra 200, extra 300 people that get to see that person's work. So by sharing Doug's work, by sharing Homie and the Dude, by sharing your grandma's knitting, everyone gets to see it and it spreads it, guys. So share at least one of our posts, like and follow the Facebook page, subscribe to YouTube. That's the way to help us, guys. Thank you so much.
Been a pleasure.
Right.
Thanks, guys. Doug, take care, brother.
We're chugging through. We're loving doing this stuff for you guys. If you want to support us, if you want to make sure that we can keep getting, better quality set, better quality lights, make the filming better.
Bigger batteries for the camera.
Bigger batteries for the camera.
Yes.
All that kind of stuff. You can do that by just liking, following the page, and subscribing to the YouTube channel. That is what really makes a difference to us.